This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning everybody, and welcome to what can only be described as a well-overcast, quite ominous morning here with safariLIVE.
Ready.
Standing by.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
My name is James Hendry, as some of you may know and some of you may not, and right now Craig, who's on camera, and I are the only people out in the wilderness today. That on account of the fact of the darkness. The other person joining us today, of course, will be Stefan Winterboer, but he cannot go walking around in his little veldskoens at the moment because it is too dark. And the reason it is too dark is because there is a very thick blanket of cloud up above us, and it is covering the rather timid efforts of the sun to shine upon this day, the 16th of March, 2017. Oh. Hyena tracks. We would love to hear from you during the course of our 3-hour safari. Hashtag safariLIVE is how you get hold of us. And, you know, the way things are going at the moment, I am on my own talking to you, and so it would be much appreciated if you would have a conversation with me, rather than making this a soliloquy until the sun manages to get itself out of bed to do a little bit of shining. Our plan, as seems to be usual these days, is to head towards the southern boundary, see if we can't find any evidence of Karula. I did that very late last night as we were doing some final camera checks on the night cameras that we have, but we were unsuccessful in relocating Hosana, who we did see just before the tests actually went up. So he and Karula were on Djuma yesterday, so with any luck they are still there, and perhaps they've killed something. Anyway, that's what we're going to go and have a look for. If I fail to find them within the first little while, we're going to head across to Cheetah Plains, because I haven't been there since the rains, since the great deluge, and I'd like to go and see some of the birds they have on offer there, although with the weather like this, I'm not sure how good the birds will be. So talk to us please, hashtag safariLIVE. As soon as it's light enough, I will do my level best to find some interesting piece of biology. And then one of the interesting things that's going to happen today is that we have a school joining us this morning from Hong Kong. Can you believe it? And that will be at 7 o'clock for 45 minutes. Rebecca, do we know how old they are today? We will find out how old they are. Ooh, they are pre-teens, 12 to 13 years of old, which indicates that in fact only some of them are pre-teens, because if you are in fact 13, you are a teen. Well done, yes. Good, okay, so it's pretty adult drive. No, Craig did not answer that, Rebecca. Craig, as you know, is almost silent. Batman on camera, Rebecca in the final control, being ably assisted by Meg Han. There's a lot going on out here at the moment, isn't there, Craig? Swathes of wildlife streaming across the road in various states of joy at being out at this time of the morning. And what I'm hoping for, other than leopards, of course, is to add to my chameleon tally, which reached a spectacular 3 last night. It was very impressive. Oh, hello Abigail in Canada. Thank you very much for getting hold of us and giving me my first conversation topic of the day. I'll have to stretch it out a bit while we wait for the light. You say, who is my favorite leopard? Well, I actually can answer that. I would love to. I used to think it was Hosana, actually. Well, initially it was Mvula when I got here. I liked him because he wasn't a big fellow, and yet he'd forged away in a world where size really does count for a huge amount. So I quite liked him. But then he decided that he would retire elsewhere, and so he's gone away from us, and we don't see him very often anymore. Every so often he comes down here, but not much. Then I thought when Hosana was born it would definitely be him, because he's a young male leopard, and everybody yet loves a young male leopard because they're so confiding, and normally they're hugely playful and they're great to watch as they grow up. Well, I enjoy Hosana deeply, but much to my surprise, his sister Shongalai has wheedled her way into my heart, and she managed to do that, of course, the first sighting we had of her on foot, when she climbed into that tree just above us and sat there regally for, I don't know, must have been about 5 minutes or so. Now obviously since then we've spent quite a lot of time with her on foot, but that particular incident where she chose to approach us and then sat with us for that special time is etched in my memory, and I think that's why Shongile at the moment is my favorite leopard. Good question. Let us head down here. I also would like to visit the hyena den at some stage. And Ellen, we're about to go over what you're talking about here, a big bump. You'll see the rising of the car. Oh, and the shaking of the presenter. Down we go. And you want to know why those bumps are there and who put them there. Well, they were put there by the Djuma staff, the Djuma road maintenance crew, and they are simply drainage humps, Ellen. So what they do is, when the water flows down the road, especially after some of the rain that we've had, it tends to cause erosion. And if you don't have those bumps to channel it and slow it down and move it off the road, you get these roads eventually turning into rivers. So that's the point of them, and they were put there by the Djuma maintenance staff, as opposed to the elephants, for example. And they're an extremely important part of trying to reduce soil erosion out here. So that's a good question from you. Thank you, Ellen. They also, of course, serve the purpose of slowing people down, which is important out here. Sometimes we do get a little overzealous and enthusiastic, and we need to remember that speed is very seldom of the essence. Out here in the wilderness, the whole point is to kind of woosah and take it in, take it all in, and not race around from sighting to sighting, which is often tempting to do. I've heard nothing else on the Game Drive radio. I think we might be entirely alone out here, which is quite a nice feeling, I might say. And hopefully we'll be able to find some form of biology in the not too distant future to tell you about. In fact, let's go to the top of this little ridge here, and then we'll stop and have a listen to what's going on around us. You can see that is all the natural light that there is. Turn those off. So it is getting a little bit brighter. I'm going to be quiet for exactly 15 seconds. Alright, let's go through what we can hear. Obviously there is the Cape turtle dove, or the ringneck dove, going plop, 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 plop. Some redback shrikes going tick, 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 tick. The first bird we heard there was a southern boo-boo going. And then there is the white-browed scrub robin going. Then there was some Egyptian geese going. Quack, 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 quack. Good. 24 degrees Celsius, 74 degrees Fahrenheit. It was at the very beginning of the drive. I think it's probably about the same as that now. That was at the weather station at Juma. We're a little bit lower down than that, so we've probably lost a degree or so. Goodness, there is a very brave fellow out there, Stefan Winterboer, probably on account of the fact that he feels sorry for me waffling away on my own out here, has taken it upon himself to head out into the wild on foot in the dark.
I'm sure James would be able to waffle non-stop going forward, but it's not quite dark, although I do agree with James's sentiments that it's pretty ominous morning this morning, but there is a sense of peace to it, and I must be honest with you, standing out here on quarantine clearings, I'm starting to feel that sense of peace that this morning's bringing as well. Now, my name is Stefan Winterboer. We are on walk. Today we have Rowan on walk today. It's the first time that I am joined by Rowan on a walk, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot of adventure for you today. What our plans are, I don't really know, to be honest. It's one of those early days where I haven't really had the time to think about what type of safari plan I have today. So probably just do the old safety trick and put your face into the wind and see where it takes you. What we do have though is we've got a couple of impala making an alarm call here. So there's an impala herd that lives on top of quarantine clearings. Sometimes they're on the far side, sometimes they're in the middle, sometimes they're on this side. Right now they seem to be in this thicket of tall trees that we have out here on the horizon. And although not making alarm calls like they would if it was a leopard, for instance, they become quite frenzied, quite panicked. It does sound like they're seeing something that they don't quite understand. Could be a hyena, could be a lion. And so proceed with caution is probably what you need to do when there's still crickets singing and you're on foot in the middle of this massive wilderness area. Luckily, the grass is pretty long and I'm speaking with a raised tone of voice, and I do that I'm doing that with a reason. Why I'm speaking with a raised tone of voice and not whispering like you sometimes hear us whisper when we're approaching animals is because I want my voice to travel. Anything that's sleeping or lying down in this tall grass will lift their head at the sound of a human's voice. And that profile of a cat, think of your dog lying on the lawn. As soon as your dog lifts their head up or your cat lifts their head up against the window when they're lying on a couch, their profile becomes immediately apparent. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do here, is get anything that's lying in the grass in front of us here to lift their head up so we can see what it is. And obviously, I stand a chance of ruining a stalk if a lion or a leopard is stalking these impala, but I'd rather not be eaten today. And we can see something else. So let's head to this termite mound and we'll take it from there. These clouds, let's see if I can show you these clouds en route. I don't know if I'm going to be setting Rowan up for a bit of a mission at the moment. Look at, see if you can see how fast these clouds are moving across the sky. Now there's not much wind where we are right now, but see if you can see. Quite difficult because it's still very dark for us, but let me just tell you that the clouds are moving faster than I could run across this open area, across the sky, which means that at the level that they're at, there is some strong winds. And clouds approaching from the south, which is that direction there that they are approaching from, is where we get our rain from. Now, I haven't looked at a weather report in quite some time, probably more than a week. And I don't actually know what weather systems we are going to experience. I don't know if we're in for another bout of rain. I don't know if we're in for a dry week. I'm not too sure at all, actually. It's going to be quite interesting to see what these clouds bring. But usually these quiet mornings, fast clouds, thick bank, quite low, it does mean that we'll probably get some rain. I'm hoping so. We are about, probably about 100 or 200 millimeters short of rain this year. Now, Shauna You've just asked the question. Oh, I suppose it's more of a statement you've asked. Why did my teammates not allow me to drive? It's actually my own imposed rule there, Shauna. It's not that I cannot drive or don't ever go and drive. It's just I enjoy walking far, far more than I enjoy being out on the vehicle. And given the choice, I would always default or choose to go on a walk rather than be in the vehicle. Why? I don't know, I just enjoy the freedom that a walk gives you. You don't have to stick to roads. You can walk pretty much where you want to here, and it just expands your horizons. In the 2 years that I've been walking around here on Djuma Private Game Reserve, I still don't have an idea about certain areas, where certain game paths go, what is inside certain thickets out here, and it's nice. It's nice to know that there are places that are unexplored. Personally, I quite enjoy having challenges where things are left unexplored, or that there's an option to go and explore things out here. It's nice. It's an incentive for me. Right, let's have a look at what's going on over here. Now, literally, I would say up to about 2 or 3 weeks ago, the grass on top of these open clearings was knee-high. And then we started to see a lot of wildebeest, a lot of general game started to move into these areas. And they tend at night time to clump together. They don't sleep as often as what I thought they would, and I'll tell you about that as we go on with this morning's safari. I was enlightened as to some animal behavior over this week, so I'll tell you some more about that. But what we're looking at here is one of these sleeping patches. You can see that it's been basically cleared of grass, and that is because it's a wildebeest that have been sleeping here. And if you come and have a look over here, it's a very good track and sign of what's going on. This is the scraping of a male wildebeest, which scraped his toes. They've got glands between the digits of their front toes. He scraped the sand with his front foot, male wildebeest. It secretes the glandular secretion onto the sand. He then rolls in it, which gets basically all his toe gunk onto his skin, and then he stands up. And the wind that blows across these open areas then has a higher point at which to pick up the scent, and his scent carries over the plains much further than it would if it was just pasted on the ground. And of course, enticing any other ladies in the area, as well as intimidating, hopefully, any other males in the area. So this is from a wildebeest, and we're starting to see these patches develop all over the place as the wildebeest move on to these open areas. None here today, though. All right, now on that note, we are going to send you over to James, who has arrived at a pan. I'm sure, I can't remember which one, though.
I've got arrived at a pan. Indeed, I have got arrived at a pan, and I've got arrived at a pan. A hippopotamus, the water in under has gone. And here start us the search leopard for Karula and cubs. Word or radio on is that Karula found was there by Leadwood Road night yesterday. Good. I'm not sure why I'm speaking like that. It is my Yoda game drive speak. We're sitting here, of course, at Twin Dams. We're going to wait once more for that hippopotamus to come out of the water. Here, the water surface is like a mill pond, broken only by the hippopotamus that has just popped up. And I think you might find is a little bit nervous of us. That's why it's under the water. And what I wanted to say is, of course, that the surface is going to be broken by drops of, or not drops, but by air bubbles coming up from what I'm sure is going to be a fairly large population of catfish fairly soon in this area. Now, Martina, I forget where you're from, sorry about that. You were wondering about what animals are dangerous in the dark. Well, you're from the Czech Republic. That's wonderful to hear from you, so thank you for getting hold of us all the way from the Czech Republic. You say, what animals are dangerous in the dark? Well, any animal that is confident in the dark, or more confident than it would be in the daytime, and that would include just about all of our nocturnal predators. So leopards, lions, and hyenas would be the things that you wanted to watch out most for in the darkness. They can tell, basically, whether you can see properly or not, because, well, you can tell if somebody can see properly or not. If someone is blundering around the place, tripping over things, it's very clear that they are either drunk or unable to see. And lions and hyenas especially are no different. Well, leopards the same. But we often see lions on foot here and often see hyenas on foot here during the daytime, and they will almost universally move away from you to try and get away. They might stand their ground and growl, but basically they're saying, I don't want to be around you, you need to move away. The same is not the case as soon as the sun goes down. It's why in camp we're very careful about walking around in the dark with torches. We don't want to surprise especially a lion or a hyena at night, because they can then, well, they start to see you much more as prey during the night time than they do during the day. Then also any kind of animal that you can't see. Obviously we're blinded at night. Buffalo tend to be more threatened at night because you can easily walk into them without them kind of realizing that you haven't seen them. They're perhaps not quite as bright as some of the predators. That might be unfair, but I think they're probably not quite there. And so they can be dangerous at night. And just about all of the incidents that I've heard of in lodges, and there have been quite a few where buffalo have hurt people, very seldom killed them, but often broken bones, have been where people are walking home at night. In the lodges, the buffalo come into the camp because they also feel a sense of security inside the camps. The predators tend to move away from them. They're also full of green grass and water and that sort of thing. And that's when people tend to get in trouble from buffalo. They walk around the side of a bush and there's a buffalo, and the buffalo gets a fright and then runs up, or sort of stands up and charges to get out of the way. And so buffalo, lions and hyenas, I suppose, would be the most dangerous animals at night. But remember, Martina, out here nothing is inherently dangerous. They're threatened by us, and that's why they become dangerous. Let's have one last look here and then let's move along. Pratine, you're wondering about the behavior of the animals and their sort of desire to sleep in the wake of a cloudy morning like this. Of course, most of us would still like to be in bed when it's chilly or cloudy and slightly oppressive weather, if you like, with low-hanging clouds. And you want to know if the animals have the same sort of approach to things. No, I don't think they do. But because they tend to stay in more thicker bush and more sheltered environments during weather like this, it perhaps looks like they get up a bit later. So no, I don't think they get up late. They've got to eat, regardless. So I think they're up. I just don't think that they're particularly confiding at the moment. There are many zebra and impala on quarantine clearings, or there were when we came past there. Alrighty, let's continue our search. I've just had word from Johan that he did see Karula last night around Leadwood Road Junction Cheetah Cut Line. That's the far eastern sector of Djuma. So we'll head around the southern boundary towards that area and see if we aren't lucky. That hippopotamus looks very contented in its little mill pond there. Nothing to threaten it whatsoever. So it will be very comfortable for the remainder of the day, we hope. Hello, Safari Shay. We've just been sitting next to some fairly grubby water, and as we know in many parts of the world, grubby water equals leeches. And you want to know if we get leeches here. It's a question we're actually asked relatively often. I've never found a leech here. I have been attached to by a leech every so often in South Africa, but not here. I've been attacked, if you like, by little leeches about that big, say about a centimetre long. They're not difficult to remove, but we do get them here. I've never found one here though, and I've walked in many of these ponds and pans in search of frogs normally, and I've never had any experience of leeches here. So I don't think they occur in great profusion around these parts. Now, what have we got knocking about on our southern boundary? Not a great deal at this stage. Hello, Laura Moore. You're wondering why leeches are used for medical purposes and not ticks. Well, first of all, they eat different things. Ticks are, well, they are bloodsuckers, I suppose, but they're much smaller. They don't suck nearly as much blood as a big leech would be able to suck. They also give you disease. Now, a leech, as far as I know, doesn't do that. But I'm also, Laura, I'm going to ask you to tell me about any experiences you've had of leeches being used for medicine. As far as I'm aware, or as I thought, that practice went out with sort of the burning of witches and that sort of thing. I thought that leeches were not used medically at all anymore, or perhaps every so often to clear a very swollen piece of flesh, maybe. I don't know. I've certainly never had a leech attached to me, and were a doctor to say to me, well, I think you need to be bled, so we'll put a couple of leeches on you, I think I'd be rather suspicious of their qualifications. I'd be very interested to know if leeches are still used medically. Obviously they were in the Middle Ages, but I don't think so anymore. Right, we are just going to gather some information over here. Avusheni Minjani Kwalan Fugile. Ja, vare Johan amtsigile lega chita Catline Junction Ledwood Marahosana in Sigala. Yeah. Maranti. Anti. Iko. Okay. Enjoy. So we were just getting a little bit of information there from Harley, and he was in the same sort of vein as us, checking this area for Karula and for Hosanna. Medical application of leeches. That's wonderful. So let's do a little bit of research on that, if you wouldn't mind. Let's find out if leeches are still used medically in the year 2017. But I'm reading a book at the moment about the 16th, or the 60, actually in 1600, so the Elizabethan era. And the chap's talking about, it's a classic novel, which many of you may well have read, called Shogun. And it's about an Englishman, basically, who fetches up in Japan circa 1600. And he talks about how in England it was considered unhealthy to live with the windows open. You kept all the windows shut. It was considered unhealthy to have a bath. They thought bath brought on the flux. Flux, as far as I understand it, was basically I guess some form of dysentery, and they thought baths brought that on, so they used to bath once a month. 29 was considered quite an old age. You'd probably have lost quite a few of your teeth by then. The house, if you were lucky, consisted of a bedroom and then a kind of utility room which contained your kitchen, an open wood fire that went to an opening in the roof, possibly the odd animal inside when it was really cold. And so they were environments of sort of disease and pestilence, and around then, of course, they used leeches to try and cure themselves of various illnesses. And I remember also from a wonderful series called The Black Adder. Now, if you have never seen The Black Adder, you need to do yourself a favor. And they set one of the series during the Elizabethan period, and I remember that Black Adder, in order to cure what he thought was a melodious affliction, he put a leech on his tongue, and so he was walking around talking like this, because the leech was sucking blood out of his tongue. And as far as I know, that practice has since ceased. Here we go. That's interesting. So Tony and ex-Ranger are saying that leeches are in fact used every so often for microsurgery, for example with reattaching digits, so were your finger to become detached from your person, you would apparently have a leech applied during the course of the microsurgery. That's very interesting indeed. But they used to be used to bleed people, because they believed that by bleeding people, by releasing the blood and taking some of it out of the body, you would lessen the amount of disease that there was. Craig, that knocking and banging noise was the aerial, was it? Oh yes, it's okay. It's back up. Now, we'd really like an animal to have a look at. I think that would be very nice. Then we wouldn't have to talk about the medical application of blood-sucking animals that we find in dirty ponds. Of course, the other interesting thing, or the most interesting thing, I think, in this book that I'm wading through at the moment, is how clean the Japanese were, and how they realized very early on that cleanliness was a far better warder off of disease than any other kind of practice. So while the Europeans had managed to build themselves world-traversing ships, astounding technologies from that respect, the Japanese, although they hadn't invented they had invented ocean-going ships, they just didn't have the technology to sail against the wind, and that's why they couldn't go around the world. They had, however, very sophisticated forms of medicine and personal hygiene that certainly made the English look like they had a lot left to be desired. Stefan is now on quarantine clearings. I hope that he has got some biology to show you. I'm going to continue with my leopard search.
I suppose us Europeans would need a high standard of medicine, being plagued by the Black Plague, which was perpetrated, I suppose, by our own filth, in a way. So I suppose there's much to learn from history and lessons. I quite like James's topic this morning about using insects and in particular for medicine or for helping us do our things. There's a big move in the world at the moment to try and understand the role of insects in sort of biological controls of different things. And just on James's theme of leeches and helping people in microsurgery, I couldn't quite get the topic that he was on about. I think attaching fingers was what it was, or probably something to do with the circulatory system, or at least keeping things clean. Maggots, which of course I try and love. I'm trying my best to change my opinion on what I think about flies, but flies obviously plague me like you have no idea, and so learning how to love them would obviously change the way that I think about them, turn them from massively irritating beasts into fascinating insects. And so I've dedicated the summer of 2017 to understanding the fly. And one of the things that I have found out is the fact that people are using maggots to clean wounds. So obviously a maggot is a fly larvae. It's what the fly comes from after the egg. So between the egg phase and the fly phase is a maggot. Maggots will quite often eat putrefying things, not just meat, but vegetables as well. But the blowfly maggot is particularly good at utilizing the dead skin of animals. And what people are doing nowadays is they've got a cut, and sometimes the cut gets infected for whatever reason. Rather than having your body overloaded with antibiotics and cutting out the necrotic flesh, they will put medical or medically cleansed maggots onto wounds, and the maggots will eat the dead flesh right to the edges where the body where the body's circulatory system can start to feed oxygenated blood to the tissue, and that way control infection. I just find that quite fascinating. Equally so, there's a South African company, I'm proud to say, that is pioneering a new type of protein powder Now, protein powder is added to animal feeds. It's what's given to animal feeds in order to boost their diet. Because we farm at such high concentrations of animals that the bush, or as we call it, the veld, can't really sustain everything that these animals need when you're putting so many animals into a small place. And so feed is supplemented. Animal feed has a large constituent of animal protein in it. Now, as mad cow disease showed us all those years ago, you can't feed cows to cows. And so mostly the animal protein constitute of feed is made up of fish meal. That's where the most of our fish that we catch goes to. Fish meal. Fish meal is added to animal feeds. That's fed to animals, and so we circumvent mad cow disease. But obviously fisheries are being depleted worldwide, and there's a massive move to try and find a substitute for this particular protein. And a South African company has pioneered using fly protein or insect protein. So what they do, and this is quite amazing, is they go to abattoirs where offal, the intestines, is generally either thrown away or incinerated. They then make a protein jelly out of the offal. So they process that into a jelly. They put the jelly into plates about 2 inches thick, and on it they smear a layer of blowfly eggs. And then they incubate the eggs. Literally a couple of days later, the eggs hatch, and within a very short space of time, within another couple of days, the maggots grow many thousands of times their own size, or from the egg at least anyway, feeding on this blood protein. The maggots are then harvested, they are sterilized and freeze-dried, and then crushed into a powder. And that powder is a very, very high quality animal protein. Or it's a very high quality protein powder, which of course is then added to animal feeds. And because it's not, the chain is broken, it's not cow to cow, it's cow to insect to cow, you don't have a risk of, hey, look here, we've got some zebra running towards us. We're being charged by some zebra. I'll finish my story now. At present, crowned lapwing was the noise, and those birds that you see flying around over there, dive bombing all the impala, some crowned lapwing, and here this is a dazzle of zebra that is coming our way. Obviously just seen us now, moving from one place to another. Not quite sure what they were moving away from, but they were moving into the wind. Ah, Holly, you've requested that we look for the McCurdy Hurley, and so I dedicate this particular sighting on foot to you, Holly, this morning, and I'm glad that we got to show it to you. They're showing us the zebra's best side. I absolutely love the way that their tails never stop wagging. When they're standing in a row like they are there, waving their tails around, it's quite a nice sight. Have a look at that. Obviously standing together like that is necessary for confusing predators, and so that herding instinct that you see over there is zebra trying to dazzle lions so that they can't single out one particular thing. Right, we're quickly going to send you over to James, who's got a bird tweeting in the bush.
I'm not sure you could call it a tweet so much as a sort of fairly vociferous and monotonous blethering. That bird looks distressed, confused, and irritated all at the same time, I feel. And it is, of course, the monotonous lark. Well, Martina, you say, how does this cloudy weather affect the birds? Clearly that bird, not one jot. It doesn't seem to be slightly affected by it, but the rest of the birds will be generally subdued. And it's funny, on a cloudy day like this, you notice immediately as the sun comes out an increase in volume as the other birds start to sing. So it's much quieter from a bird point of view when the weather is like this, except for this slightly ridiculous, monotonous lark. Look at him, doesn't he look astounded by life? Crest popped up, feathers a little scruffy. And he's like he's like a small child on a soapbox, trying to give some, he's like a paper seller, like an old school paper seller. The confused one. Craig, you're wondering about the earliest bird, which you would expect to be catching a worm, but the earliest bird out here is not a worm catcher, it is a seed eater. And it is the grey-headed sparrow. Now, the grey-headed sparrow, a very humble bird on account of the fact that it is brown and grey and not born of the spectacular colours of perhaps the carmine bee-eater. But he is up the earliest, and he's followed very closely by the crested francolin. And there the monotonous lark has headed off. I'm going to find you a picture. Tony, you say, is that specific bird molting? Yes, it could be. It could be molting. Birds are in a constant state, well, they're not all of them, but often in a constant state of molt, getting rid of old feathers and replacing them with new ones. That may have just been a scruffy piece of down. They don't like to have their dead feathers or old feathers on the body because, of course, they affect the way that the bird is able to fly. There's the grey-headed sparrow. The southern grey-headed sparrow. I have seen the northern grey-headed sparrow, Craig. Do you know where that was? It was in the north, yes. Yes, it was in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Not a place I'd recommend for anyone going on holiday. But nevertheless, there was the grey-headed sparrow in what can only be described as the armpit of Africa, Kinshasa. That is the capital of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Quite possibly the foulest place in all the world. I wouldn't recommend it. Holly, while we're looking at birds and hoping for leopards, you say, will the change of season bring in different birds? No, unfortunately it won't. What it will do is take away a whole lot of birds. We're going into the autumn fairly soon. In Johannesburg it already feels very autumnal. Out here it's just the edge of the summer has been taken off. We'll have another month or so of beautifully warm weather, and then we'll have a month of coolish weather, and then we'll have winter for 2 whole months where the temperature will drop to a terrifying, might drop to 4 degrees once, in which case we will all complain bitterly, but really we hardly have winter here. But Holly, what that does is that it does take some of the birds away. They migrate up towards the north to be in the summer. The swallows will go, many of the bee-eaters will go, all the cuckoos will go, a couple of the kingfisher species will disappear, a lot of the brown eagles will go. Sorry, I just keep turning off the road because I'm hoping for tracks, but there are only hyena tracks around here, you know. We'll go and have a look down here and then turn to the north. There is a mammal there, 2 mammals I believe, and I think that they are chestnut coloured with horns, weighing in at approximately 70 kilograms for a large male. Yes, impalas up ahead. I believe I can't find one track even of this cat. The monotonous lark carries on. We're definitely going to stop and look at these impala for, well, what else is there? Right. There we are. The wind's starting to pick up now, just in case the weather wasn't quite blustery or distressing enough. Right, there we are, Craig. Don't say I never find anything for you to film. There is 1 or 2 impala now heading behind a bush. Wonderful. probably hear the wind starting to blow a bit. Now, the number of times I've heard guides say, gosh, look at this. Look how camouflaged the impala is. No, that impala is not camouflaged, it is hiding. Now, I'm just getting some information here from Rex and saying he's got some lion tracks. Rex, I did drive that road. Sorry, it was in the dark. I did miss those tracks. Confirm how many animals. There were lion tracks on Philemon's Dip. Copy, Rex. Confirm. Going south down Philemon's Dip. Straight Philemon's cut line. Philemon's cut line. Okay, I don't feel so bad. I didn't miss them there. Okay, we're going to go back along this way then. The Nkuhuma Pride. And while we do that, we'll head across to Steph, who's got himself the McCurdy Hurdy.
Alright, we're still with the McCurdy Hurdy actually. They haven't actually moved very far from where we were with them, to be honest. They've just moved into the thickets, they're busy feeding on the grass, and they look like they're going to be moving up onto the open areas. And I don't quite know, the only thing that I can put it down to is the wind is quite strong at the moment. And animals here, when the wind blows a lot and shakes the bushes around, quite often they become very nervous. And it's because they can't pick out any shapes of anything. And I think that's basically what's getting these animals into their state, is the fact that it's a bit windy and everything's a bit nervous. They've just been spooked by the impala being spooked in front of us. Let's stand over here, and while we wait for them to calm down and come out onto the open area, it'll allow me to finish what I was talking about a little bit earlier, and that would be the protein powder that is made from fly maggots, and then added to animal foods, which of course then are a substitute for their diet in monoculture, when we're farming one type of animal, and intensive farming practices like beef farming is. Have a look here. How they're coming out onto the road for us. Hello there. Now, with the exception of the zebra that you were looking at, they all seem very relaxed with us on foot, and that's because at this particular distance today, with the wind blowing in the direction that it's blowing, we offer absolutely no threat to these zebra at this distance, which is about 50 yards from where we're standing at the moment. Other days, under other conditions, with the wind blowing in a different direction, that comfort zone that they're skirting at the moment would be much wider, and in some instances could even be a bit shorter. But standing here where I'm now, this is about as close as what you'd ever get to zebra on foot in the Kruger National Park. Now, Button's cockatoo, you wanted to know what the correct pronunciation of zebra or zebra. Is it zebra or is it zebra? Button's cockatoo, I presume you're from North America, from the United States of America, and in that sense, you are 100% correct in saying zebra. That's how North Americans pronounce zebra. If you come from South Africa and I suppose Europe in a way, Australia, we say zebra. So in the alphabet that we taught at school, we say Z and you say Z. And of course, there's nothing wrong. You can say whatever you like, and as long as it's spelt with a sharp angled squiggle in the front, you can end the EBRA anytime you want, I suppose. Now, being on the short plains like these zebra are is exactly where they want to be when it's windy like it is now. They can't be ambushed by anything. They've got a lot of space to put those huge hindquarters into play. If they were to be chased by a lion, you can imagine how much speed they can generate from those massive haunches. And these are big zebra. These plains or Burchell zebra, out of the couple of different species of zebra that we get in Africa, they are the largest, and they grow to about 500 pounds for a big stallion. I don't think there's a stallion here. I don't know. Why are you running? Where are you going? This wind is definitely playing havoc. Now they're going to cross the road again. So now we have a zebra crossing, well, potentially. I know that's cheesy as anything, but you just have to say it. There we go. I have to excuse myself for that. I really don't like doing those types of things. But yeah, you can't help it. Their tail just non-stop. For me, the favorite part of a zebra is the blaze on their face. So they have like a chevron. Hopefully we'll be treated to another look at the face of a zebra. However, I doubt it. I think they're just following this herd mare. The weird thing is they've made this entire circle around us at the moment. I don't quite know what and why. Why would they run one way and then go straight back again? And I think what I'm going to do is follow them. So we're going to keep a respectful distance, and by respectful we're going to see how they react to us walking with them on foot. And why don't we join the zebra herd and see where they go, basically. All right. But in the meantime, and until they get to a little bit more open place, why don't we go off to James, who's managed to find that an animal he was looking for.
Indeed we have. It was just after I last saw you, and so we've stopped heading towards where the lions were seen, and we're waiting around here where the leopard was last seen while we enjoy a sight of a very large elephant bull who has a missing tusk, and so he's quite easy to recognize. I'm not sure that I know who he is. I don't think I've seen him before. But there he is. He's now coming out, of course, because he wants to be on TV. It's nice to see. Good morning to you, sir. Did you have a good evening last night, perhaps? No? Well, I hope it wasn't too bad. Right, well, here we are then. He's coming out, so we're going to be a little bit careful of him. He is definitely in must. There is a lot of urine dripping from, well, where urine drips from, of course. And that means he is in must. He's in this very heightened stage or state of testosterone. He looks fairly relaxed, and again, I'm struck by what I feel is the need of elephants to have a conversation, especially bulls. I think they get very bored, and that's what I think this guy's doing. He's come out. There's no reason necessarily for him to be here other than to be interacting with us on some form of level. I'm not sure what level that is, but that's what I think he's doing. Now, Tracy, you ask a very good question about what you think could have broken his tusk. Tracy, I suspect that it was overuse. If you look at that broken tusk, it's much darker than the other tusks. Can you see that? And the darkness of his tusks indicates that that's the tusk that he uses when he is... Sorry, 1 second. Now, the darkness of his tusks indicates that that is the tusk he uses when he is digging or scraping bark from the top, from trees and that sort of thing. And so I suspect that he broke it through overuse. But I suspect that it was probably weakened, perhaps, by a crack, or which may in turn have been caused by something like an abscess. I'm not entirely sure. Obviously, we will never know. It's just difficult to understand why something so very thick and very strong would break in the absence of some sort of fault. No, he's not very far away from us. In fact, he's pretty close. He's probably about, what do you say, Craig, about 8 meters or so. We're just going to check the focus mark. And he's very relaxed at the moment, which is wonderful. Isn't he great? It's so lovely that he's being so confiding with us. And not in the slightest, but people will tell you that a mustable elephant is aggressive. Well, I don't think he's going to be aggressive. I hope he's not. Craigus, if I have to leave suddenly, you will hold on tight, will you? No, he's not being aggressive. He might be a little bit irritated. Oi! He just threw sand on us. Just going to give him a little start the engine, just to sort of make him hopefully back off. Oi! Alright, now what we're going to do is just move away, because he's clearly now having an interaction with us that, well, it's not making him uncomfortable, but his ire has been raised for some reason. So let's just move there. And the approach here for me is to stop any initial further interaction, which we did just by making a sound with the voice there, and then to increase the space. There's somebody driving along this road at about 780 kilometers an hour. I'm just going to have to quickly move off it. Alright, okay, sorry, we're going to leave right now because there's a leopard just down here in the drainage line. That's what he said. He was he was doing 100 miles an hour, but we'll forgive him for that now. We'll carry on with that elephant discussion, but basically the approach there is to increase distance. I am not one who subscribes to the school of thought that by moving away from an elephant like that, you're encouraging him to chase you. In fact, what happened there was quite the opposite. When we moved away, he also moved away. I don't think he would have come towards us. He may have put his trunk on the car, but that's the sort of thing we don't really want to encourage. He didn't give me any sense of threat. Right, we're nearing the drainage line now, and he says there was a leopard lying right inside the Umlwamati drainage. This is very exciting news. And I've got a crunchy taste in my mouth from the elephant throwing sand at us. And the starting of the engine will often just make them stop like that. All right, he says there was a leopard lying right here. There. Oh, sorry, Craig. It's Hosanna. Go ahead. Is that Hosanna or is it Chongile? Let me just look. Yeah, I've got him here. Stations located one young leopard cub on the southern side of Gari Main in the Umlwamati drainage. Animal is static. We've got this little Hosanna. Hello, boy. What did you give your mother for her birthday yesterday? And there's a squirrel shouting at him. I haven't seen him for 3 weeks. Now the reason I was laughing there was because I slammed on anchors and Craig came scudding forward off his seat and went, "Oh!" Zach, you're wondering about... Oh! There's another leopard just above us. Well, that's very exciting. Phew. There is Shongile. Zach as we listen to this squirrel shouting at our two favorite characters. There is my favorite leopard right now. You say, are there any animals that call specifically leopard when they're alarm calling? Certainly monkeys do. We know that monkeys have an individual call for leopards. I imagine that there are other species that do, but that we perhaps haven't picked up the sound before, or picked up exactly the differences in the sound. Stations both of Karula's cubs are in this position at the junction of Gari Main with Umluamati. And I think she's trying to catch the squirrel. Young leopards do like to try and catch squirrels. Craigus, let me go back a little bit. It might be a bit easier. I'll try not to slam the anchors on again so that you hurt yourself. Oh, that's lovely. Both of the cubs are here now. I'm just talking on the radio there. Now, if we move away from the cub in the tree, from Shongile, just for a second, I wonder if Hosana wasn't lying exactly there when we went past here before. Can you see him there, Craig? Just zoom right into the middle of your picture there. Up a bit. There he is. Can you see him? And I wonder if he wasn't lying right there. Okay, quickly, sorry, let's go back to Shongile. She's now performing in a quite remarkable fashion. Oh, what a relief this is to see these wonderful leopards, especially on a day like today. Sorry, Molly, I'm afraid I missed that question. Can we have it again, please, Becca? Oh, Molly, you say, who do I think will take over after Karula? Molly, I don't think that anyone's going to take over necessarily. I think what you'll find is that the territory will be divided. And it will be filled probably by Shadow to the east, so she'll probably come, at least to the west, she'll probably come further east. I'm going to have to move forward, Craig. There's just a bit much going on behind us. And then I think we'll also find that, you know, Tundi would move in from the east, and it would just sort of be filled up, but her territory won't be replaced as such. Now, maybe let's just look at Hosana here. In fact, sorry, let me get into a position. Let me just reverse back into the drainage, then we can have both of them. And we're the only ones that are allowed to do that because we're the only ones from Juma over here. Hosana is totally fearless of cars. It's so interesting. He's much less fearful of cars than he is of people on foot. Alright, now we've got them both. There's the one up in the tree. I wonder where Karula is. She could easily be right here. Ah, so wonderful. Happy Jay, you say, do they have fat bellies? I think Hosana probably does. He's been eating an impala with his father, quite interestingly. but I don't see hugely fat bellies on them at the moment, no. So they could probably eat if they wanted to. That's a lovely picture there, isn't it? So they have been eating, and we know that they've been eating pretty well. But I'm sure they could eat again. Karula's work is never done when it comes to feeding them. And what I've been thinking about of late is the fact that, we talk often about the independence and when they go independent and how they go independent and does Karula chase them off, etc., etc. But I think what I've noticed amongst these two is that the process of independence is not a sudden one. It's not suddenly one day she decides that she's had enough of them. It's much longer than that. It takes much longer than that. And what I think we're seeing here is how it's a very gradual process, where they just start to spend more and more time on their own. Hosana's coming across the road here. Stocky little fellow. Yes, his belly does look full. Now this is exactly where we want him to be. He must come north into Djuma. I wonder how often we've driven past these creatures, and as the grass is so much longer than it has been, can you imagine how often we're driving past these two leopards and of course their mother? You still see him there, Craig? Okay, let's stick with the one in the tree then for now. I'll keep an eye out for Hosana, see if he pops out. She's having a great time. The squirrel is still shouting at her, but he's managed to calm himself down after the initial fright of having a leopard there. Fastidiously, like her mother, remaining clean. But of course the males do that as well, don't they? Well, sometimes, Mike, you say, do leopards normally have the same graceful way of landing that house cats do? Well, yes and no. Certainly Shongile, far more so than Hosana, he tends to be fairly inelegant in his dismounts. You see, they're a lot heavier, and so when they land, it does look a lot heavier. They're much more elegant, for example, than lions when they go or descend from trees or anything that they've climbed, but they can sometimes find it a little awkward to go down vertically. I'm not sure if Hosana is still there. Oh, yes, he is. I can just see him. It's wonderful. Apparently there are a lot of people coming here from the south, so I'm not sure how long we're going to be able to be here, but we're going to extend it for as long as we can. Right, well, I'm going to listen to the radio. I think we should be able to stay here for a little bit longer. And we are, of course, going to hopefully show these beautiful leopards to the school. While I do that, I believe Steph has got quite tired and decided that he needs to take a small rest. So let's go and find out how comfortable the earth is behaving as his bed.
My friend James comes up with these things. I'm not really taking a small rest, to be quite honest with you. I'm lying on the road trying to puzzle out a interesting track and sign here. I'm going to have a look over here. This is quite obviously a solifuge, a fairly large one, but it's joined by a centipede, also a fairly large one, a cockroach, and it looks like an earwig. Now you might ask yourself the question, why do we have 4 different species of insects all laying in the same place? Initially I thought that the centipede and the solifuge had been squashed by a car while the solifuge was eating the centipede. But that's not the case, because if it was squashed by a car, they would be flat, and they're not. And so now we got to start thinking about other things. So you start looking around for tracks. And the only tracks that we have over here are from a thick-knee bird. Here's the track right here. And I'll try and see if I can circle one a bit closer to you. Here is one here. And I think what's happened over here is the thick-knee bird grabbed the centipede. The centipede bit the thick-knee bird on the inside of the mouth, which caused the thick-knee to regurgitate its dinner. The dinner consisting of a cockroach, an older earwig, oh hang on, I brushed, an earwig, and then this partially digested solifuge with another there's another cockroach there. Isn't that amazing? It's the first time I've seen this regurgitation. I'm sure it happens, but there we have literally 3 different types of insects all lying in the same place. There might even be another one here. That's the centipede that's been squashed up on itself in the bird's crop. There is another insect there, that's a spider. So we've got a spider, a centipede, an earwig, may even be 2, an earwig, and a cockroach, and a solid, all regurgitated by this thick-knee bird. Interesting, eh? I think that's about the story for that. I don't think there is much else. These flies today are just insane. You can see them buzzing around my head and buzzing around my arm over here. You can have a look at them over here in their thousands. And these flies bite. So if you don't disturb them so that they fly away from you, they inject a little needle into you, and it is insanely irritating. I'm trying my best to love them today. It's not really working, to be quite honest. All right, we're going to send you back over to James and Shongile in the tree.
Shongile is still in a tree, and sounds like Steph found a bit of a crime scene over there. Fascinating stuff. Now you see, this is a great way to experience the bush. I think we've got a really sort of iconic sighting here with leopard in tree, the kind of thing that people pay thousands of dollars on a nightly basis to come and see in the Sabi sand, take hundreds of pictures. And then at the other end of the scale we have Steph on foot, finding those astounding things that his rather amazing eyes are able to pick up, and then sharing all sorts of insights about the smaller aspects and just as important aspects of this reserve's ecology. And I think that's a wonderful way to experience nature out here. As we always say, it's not all about the big stuff. Not that you could describe that elegant cat as big stuff. She's much too elegant. Let no one ever describe my favourite leopard at the moment. Of course, my favourite leopard will change, I've no doubt. That's okay. Do you have to have the same favourite leopard? I don't think you have to. But for now, she's my favourite. Craig, do you have a favourite leopard? You don't have one, says Craig. Rebecca says it's like having a favourite child, which is palpable nonsense. Thank you, Rebecca. Rebecca's just back from leave, of course, so she hasn't quite regained her sanity. And you can, I don't know if you noticed this, but you can perhaps notice how quiet the morning is on account of the weather. Yoli, you've been looking at the back end of Shongile, and so you reckon that she's got a longer tail than the average leopard. Yoli, I don't think so, no. I think maybe it looks like that because she's much less stocky than Hosanna, but I don't think that her tail is any longer than anyone else's, I'm afraid. I think her tail is a standard issue sort of leopard length. Although, Yoli, now, you see, I haven't really noticed this before, but you say that, and I'm just wondering if perhaps you aren't right. Now, we were asked about of course, the elegance with which a cat is able to get out of a tree. Now, you're watching here, and certainly our lady members of the guiding team, specifically Jamie, has spoken at length about the inelegance of Hosanna in his descent, and I've detected a note of sort of, well, if not feminism, certainly an element of what should we say, female bias in her assessments. There she comes, and I think, well, it wasn't too bad. It was actually, I'm going to have to agree with Jamie, I think that was more elegant than her brother's capable of. And she'll just have a little clean now, because that's what leopards do. And what she must do, of course, is come north towards her brother. That will make us all very happy indeed. I mean, that is a wonderful picture. Yes, come on, come this way. Oh, it's so nice to spend a bit of time with him again. I wonder where her mum is. Their mum's probably gone off hunting. Johan had her last in the far eastern boundary, as I said yesterday. There she is, now going to settle gently. Cheryl, you're wondering about the hunting and whether they have an easier time. Oh, look, just to the left. Right, sorry, that's the right-hand side, isn't it? You say, do leopards have an easier time hunting in the longer grass? Yes, they do, especially in the day. You know, the grass gives them such an excellent place to hide. There is a disadvantage to it as well, though, Cheryl, and that disadvantage is the fact that they find it difficult to see over the top of the grass. Now, that might seem almost trivial, but it isn't. It's not easy to see over the tops of the grass when it's this long, and that means that they have to keep popping their heads up. Sometimes they can't do that. They actually have to stand up on their back back legs. They will leap up and look. And I think it's most nicely illustrated if you go to cheetah plains and you've watched the cheetah walking through the plains there. It's quite difficult for them to see what's going on. And it's the same for the leopards. But that said, I still think that it's an easier time for them to hunt than it would be otherwise. So it's why leopards and lions will give birth predominantly in the summer months. Not always, they can give birth in the winter. In fact, most of our last group of cubs were birthed during the winter time. But for the stalking predators, the thicker the bush is, the easier it is. This is just great stuff. And I'm going to keep an eye on her brother, because her brother is now stalking her. Let's have a look this side, Craig. He's coming this way. Either that or he's gone to sleep, but he looks to me like he's about to stalk her. I can't believe no one else has come to the sighting. It's just too wonderful to have both of these leopards all to ourselves. Of course, we've yet to see their mother, who turned 13 years old yesterday. Bless her. No, he's gone, so let's go back to the other leopard. I'll keep an eye on the male. If he decides to do anything, we'll move. Everything very calm. I think it certainly tells me that they have had a fairly substantial amount of food over the last few days. She looks very content. She's a special cat, this one. Now her brother is flat in the grass. I'm 99% sure that we drove straight past both of them when we came past here earlier this morning. Ian, you're 10 years old and you're in Canada, and you're asking a very good question to which I'm not sure there's a very good answer. And so I hope that you will be satisfied with what I'm going to say to you. You say, why do leopards have rosettes and cheetahs have spots? Why is one helpful in one context and not the other? I think what you'll find is that it's quite a complicated answer, Ian, and I don't know how much about things like evolution you know, or the advantages of adaptation. But it's basically the same or similar solution to the same problem. So the problem that these cats have, of course, is the need to stay hidden all the time. And so what you need to do if you want to stay hidden, in the case of these cats, is to try and, the spots help them to stay hidden when they're hunting. Now, it just happens here, the male's up. It just happens, Ian, that there are two different ways you can do that. You can do that with spots, or you can do it with rosettes. And these cats developed at different times. And what happened is that they've now developed the same strategy, or a different strategy, for the same problem. So I don't think that there's any real advantage to having rosettes versus spots. I just think that that's how nature has made them, and it's given them two different solutions to the same problem of being hidden. See, now he's going to stalk his sister. She's looking for him. Look at that. I don't think she can see him. Oh, that's a wonderful picture of her there. Let's just keep an eye there. I think they probably will leap onto each other fairly soon. Oh, let's move around. Let's move around there to the fire break. We'll just wait for this other vehicle to go past. Hello, Monique. Would you like to say hello to her yourself?
No, I'm not watching now. I'm live.
Yes, I know you are. But would you like to say hello to her?
Can I say hello to my mother?
Yeah, please would you put the camera on this fellow?
Monique, Judith, we're having a great time. I hope you're watching Safari Live. We are live. We are live.
Sorry, Rebecca, go again with that. How cool is that? Okay, we're going to be joined by a school very shortly. And so, well, I think we're going to play on what we call the ident, and then you'll be back with me. Good morning, everybody, at the Christian Lion School in Hong Kong, of all places. You're on your very first live safari here from the northeast corner of South Africa, and you are the luckiest people in the world, really. Well, certainly in Hong Kong. There we have a gorgeous leopard, and we don't see that every day. My name is James, and for the next 45 minutes, me and Steph, yes, that is English, isn't it? Yes. No, Steph and I will be your hosts, and we're going to be hopefully spending a good half hour with these leopards. Craig is on camera here at the moment, and any questions you have would be glad to answer, and we look forward to answering any queries or questions that you might have. We're going to carry on moving just round the corner here and get another look. That is a young male leopard. He was born in February 2016, so he's a year and 1 month old. His sister is just across the road. Ooh, this is wonderful stuff. And their mother is now 13. She had her birthday yesterday. They're the two cubs on the road in front of us. We'll just wait here. There are, of course, other safari vehicles in the area. Now, what I'm going to do, Craig, I'm going to move quite quickly. We're going to go around on this road here and get a nice view. So any questions you have, kids, please feel free to answer them. Well, you're not really kids anymore, are you? Sort of 12 to 13 years. And it's great to have you here all the way from Hong Kong. Valerie, you say, are these animals tame? Valerie, they are not tame at all. They are just used to us, which means that they are happy to go about their lives while we are near them, but they're not tame. You couldn't get out of the car and touch them. You sometimes can get close to them on foot, but you don't want to touch them. They are completely wild animals. And it's just through the, many years of spending time with animals out here that they've become used to our presence in vehicles, but they are in no way tame. We'll hopefully pick them up coming around here. Right, while we do this, Steph is out on foot looking for some of the smaller things that you find in the bush.
Hello and welcome to the bushwalk to all of you from the Christian Lions all the way from Hong Kong. And yes, we are looking at the smaller things. In this particular case, we're looking at a very small thing from a very big animal. Come with me, come and have a look over here. This is the fresh piece of dung from an African elephant. And you can see that let me just stand on the grass so it's out of your way over here. You can see that the elephant dung, smooth on the outside and rough on the inside, and that's because they eat a bunch of plants. Elephants eat grass and trees, but this time of the year, which is our summertime, we're at the end of our summer, mostly just grass. Have a look at that. And mostly coming out the same way that it went in, pretty much undigested. And these are just big compost balls. There's an insect that has been living inside here. That is a fruit chafer. And the reason why that insect is inside this piece of dung is because, being summer, there's a lot of fruit inside elephant dung that hasn't been digested, and that fruit chafer enjoys digging through elephant dung to eat all the fruit that hasn't been digested. Sounds yucky, eh? But it also means that we need to watch out. Elephant are fairly dangerous, especially when you're out here on foot in the African bush, and we have to watch out for elephant like this. So we need to test to see how fresh this particular elephant dung is, and a very good way of testing elephant dung is you stick your finger into it, you wait for all the juices to get onto your finger, and then you taste it. This elephant dung tastes like it's about 2 hours or so old. So it's lost its body heat and it's not warm anymore. It's cold still from last night. So this elephant isn't right here right now, but it doesn't mean that we don't need to be careful. And that's what we're going to be doing now. So over the next couple of minutes, while you're with us, next couple of hours or whatever, the next couple of minutes, we're going to be looking for this elephant and anything else around over here. You're off to James, who's got some leopard to show you.
Now, by moving south, Steph means that they are going onto the reserve just next door to ours, so we can't go where they are going. I'm just going to move slightly so we can get a better view of them. Oh, they're playing now. I managed to get you right behind a tree there. That was brilliant on my part. There we go. Well, leopards eat meat of it if they're little. I think he's just seen his mother. You can't really see us at the moment. How's that, Craig? Sorry about that, everybody. Manhay, they eat meat. We have 9 species of antelope here, and they will take the small to medium-sized ones. So something called steenbok and duiker and impala would make up the bulk of their diet. But leopards have what we call a very Catholic diet, which means that they're able to eat just about anything. They will eat anything from lizards to fish to frogs to termites sometimes, and of course all the way up to things the size of wildebeest, which are very large antelope indeed. And Ray, you're wondering how big they get. Ray, they get to roughly, a big male will get to about 85 kilograms, sometimes up to 90 if he's massive. Female, sort of 45 kilograms is a relatively large one. We think that their mother weighs between 35 and 40 kilograms or so. So they're not enormous. But a big male, yeah, so I mean a big male about the size of a fairly large human male. And the female's a little bit smaller, mass-wise, than a female human being. And their height, I suppose, at the shoulder for a male would be roughly, say, 3 feet or so at the shoulder, about 1 meter. I keep forgetting you're in Hong Kong, so you're going to use, of course, the metric system, because unlike some parts of the world, you are not using the imperial system anymore. All right, now this is a really good question from Ollie. Ollie, while we look at that leopard, you're saying, how do you tell the difference between a leopard, a jaguar, and a cheetah? Well, a leopard and a jaguar have very similar shaped spots or rosettes. And this, if you look at a jaguar's rosettes, or arrangements of spots. So we call them rosettes because the spots are formed in a circle around a sort of discolored or copper-colored center. And if you were to look at a jaguar, you'd find that that rosette is much larger, and the actual animal itself is much larger. Well, not much larger, but they're probably about 10% bigger than leopards. And they occur, of course, only in South America. So if you were to find something that looked like a leopard in South America, you would know immediately that it was a jaguar. Then a cheetah is a very different build. So jaguars and leopards build very stockily. They are very powerful. They're quite short and they're very muscular. A cheetah much less so. A cheetah is taller, much more slightly built, and they have got spots on them, not those rosette shapes. So you can see the spots on the front of his chest there. That's what a cheetah's got, but all throughout the body. They don't have that rosette arrangement of spots. And they've all got a much smaller head, much less in the way of muscle definition, because they are totally over-specialized for speed, which means they cannot, like the leopard, make do with just about anything to eat. They do not have the Catholic diet of the leopards. They must eat pretty much only small to medium-sized antelopes, and they catch them, of course, by chasing them at great speed. Let me just move out the way here for this chap to go past. Sorry about that. So let me just move a little bit forward here. So I hope that answers the question. The snow leopard would be all right, so we also, sorry about that, everyone, but of course, like I was saying, those are not the only 3 spotted cats you get. Snow leopards and clouded leopards would be 2 others, but the snow leopard is relatively closely related to these chaps, and of course lives up in the Himalaya and various other, well, mountain fastnesses in Eurasia. Highly endangered. Then we had a question about where they live, or what climate they live in, and that's from Matthew. And Matthew, the climate leopards live in goes all the way from the Mediterranean climate of the southern Cape of South Africa, where they have a winter rainfall and summer more heat, temperatures up to sort of 38 degrees sometimes in the height of the summertime. And then they'll go all the way up to here, where we have very hot and relatively wet summers. Sort of gets to about 42 degrees here every so often. But then they extend all the way up through Africa, through the central rainforest regions, into the deserts of Arabia. They used to extend all the way into Europe as well. Obviously, they've been excluded from that part of the world now. Then they extend all the way across Asia, down into India, and eventually across to the Amur region of Russia, in the far east of Russia, where it's obviously freezing cold in the wintertime. Now, that's the same species of leopard all the way, different subspecies, so a slight variation, but they could absolutely interbreed with each other. And so they extend all the way from the blinding heat of the Arabian desert, where they're much smaller than they are here. The males probably only weigh 30 to 35 kilograms, like the females here, all the way across to the freezing coldnesses of the far east of Russia. Now, you're wondering, Gordon, where we are here. We're sitting in the northeastern corner of South Africa. I don't think I told you that at the beginning, did I? Northeast corner of South Africa, which of course is the southern tip of the African continent, and we're in a place called the Kruger National Park, and that of course is one of the most famous national parks in all the world. Here we have the little female. Shongile is her name, which means the beautiful one. Startlingly original name, that. And she is heading off into the bushes to try and stay hidden. And I wonder, you know, we drove past this area earlier this morning and we failed to see them. So I think you could see how easy it would be for her to hide. And Sean, while the spots of that gorgeous animal just disappear there in amongst the heads of the guests, let's go back to the young male. Sean, you say, how long do they live for? A little bit like our own species, males live for not quite as long as females. The males live probably till they're about 14 years old as the oldest male on record in this area. And the females can live up to about 18 years. I think potentially in captivity they would live to 20 or so. But very few animals out here die of old age. Once it becomes difficult to hunt and difficult to eat, well, then of course the animals are going to eventually drop dead from starvation, or they will be attacked by other predators. And that's the sad, well, not sad thing, but it is an inevitable fact of life out here, that once you get old and you become infirm or unable to move around too much, something is going to get you. Now I can hear way off to the distance, I can hear some squirrels going, and that normally means that they've spotted something that might be wanting to eat them, and I suspect quite strongly that the mother of these two cubs is coming towards them. Ray, you're wondering how many types of leopards there are in this area. There's only one type, and that is the African leopard. That's this one here, and there's actually only really one type of leopard the world over. Yes, there are different variations, different subspecies. We only have one subspecies here, and that's the African leopard out here. I wonder if it wouldn't be worth our while just popping down the road there to see if we can't see if the mother isn't coming this way. Let's have a look-see. Tuleka, you say, will the leopards not harm us? No, Tuleka, clearly they won't. Like I say, they are used to our presence in vehicles. Now, that's not to say that they're not dangerous at all, or they're not potentially dangerous. If you irritate one of them enough, and certainly their mother has been known to do this, they do what we call charge, which means they'll come rushing at you as in a warning to say, go away. If you don't heed that warning, then yes, they can become potentially dangerous. But they do not see human beings, either on foot or in vehicles, as something to eat. They just don't see us as prey. They see us, excuse me, they see us as a kind of presence that they don't really worry about. And why they don't worry about us? Well, it's because they don't associate us with something to eat, and normally, actually, they associate human beings with they associate human beings with a threat. They see us as a predator, not as prey. Because we, of course, have evolved in Africa, which makes us, we evolved as a predator in Africa. So most animals see us as a threat. Now, Ian, apparently you have asked a question, but I'm afraid I've missed what it was because I was looking for the mother. What is it again, please? Oh, Ian, you want to know how many leopards it will take to take down a large animal. Ian, leopards don't hunt in groups. They live on their own. They're solitary animals, except when they're young. So these guys are young. They're about to go independent. So between 18 months and 2 years, they will become independent of their mother. And then they hunt on their own. So when you say how many leopards would it take to take down a large animal, there really isn't an answer for that question, because they don't hunt like that. They don't hunt in groups. That said, we have seen, we've seen evidence, certainly when these leopards' mother and their father was in the process of mating, we saw them eating, so we didn't see them kill it, but we did see them eating a young buffalo. Now that's quite unusual because that's quite big for a leopard. The biggest animal out here that I've seen a young male leopard or a male leopard killing was in fact a wildebeest, which is a fairly large ungulate. Wasn't an adult, but probably weighing in roughly 130 or so kilograms. And the biggest one I've seen a female with is probably an adult male impala weighing about 70 kilograms or so. Let's go back to the cubs. I couldn't see the mother there. She might pitch up at some stage here. Now, if we can't get a good view of the cubs, we'll move on and see what else we can see. I know there was a hippo not too far from here. All right, Stefan has managed to find a very nice plant to show you, so I'm going to give you one last look at the leopard cub, and then we're going to go and see if we can't find a hippopotamus, while you go over to discover some of the wonders of the flora with Steph.
There is a wonder of a flora. Thank you very much, James. This is a plant that I quite enjoy. This is a plant called a Waltheria plant. Now, what we use Waltherias for out here is you pull them up by their roots, or you pull their roots out, you crush their roots, or you wash them and then you crush their roots up, and then you boil the roots in some water, and it makes for a wonderful tonic to drink. You can't drink a lot of it. It doesn't taste that nice, like any good thing for you, like medicine. It tastes a bit bitter, and but it really is good. Good antioxidant, antifungus, antibacterial. It's even a little bit of an antidepressant. So this tree is actually quite important. This little bush is quite important. But that's not why I stopped here. I stopped here because there's a puzzle for us to work out here in the bush. Apart from how I am going to get rid of the 400 million flies that are infesting me at the moment. But that's another story for another day. Here we have the remains. Well, I actually think it's not the remains at all, but I actually think that that is the supper of a spider. There's a web here, and spiders generally wrap up the food that they catch in their web in silk like this, and they lather it. It means to store, and the spider would have stored this particular food to use at a later stage, but I cannot for the life of me find the spider. So I think the spider's actually been eaten by something. Now, the only thing that really eats spiders out here are birds. So I think what's happened is a bird has come along, seen the spider sitting in her web, and simply just plucked the spider off and gobbled it down. Because I really cannot find any trace. Now, sometimes spiders will hide underneath the leaves of bushes and plants. In this particular case, missing in action, unfortunately. And quite nice to show you. But nevertheless, is one of those things. Come and have a look at these flies. This is a stable fly. Let me see if I can hold it still. It's stiller than the wind, at least, anyway. So right here at the end of this grass, this is what's plaguing us at the moment. This one is nice and fat because it's full of blood. They suck blood. And I must have at least 100 of these flies buzzing around me as we speak. If you don't shush them away, disturb them, then they bite you and they leave a nasty bump. Can't really do anything to you. They're not the dreaded tsetse fly of a little bit further north of here. The tsetse fly is a type of horsefly that bites you and can give you a sickness called sleeping sickness, which is not something that you want to catch out here. It won't kill you. It's not as bad as malaria is anyway, but nevertheless, all good. I do carry around a fly swatter. This one's looking a little bit abused. It's made from a plant called an osomum plant. And for years, this plant has been used as a natural fly repellent because of a lovely smell that it gives off. There's an oil in here that flies find repellent. I find it quite nice. It's got a nice basil-y smell. And I beat myself about the shoulders and on the head vigorously to release the smell of the plant, but in the same time also to try and kill as many of these flies as I can while we're busy walking in the bush, and I'm trying not to get myself eaten by anything. Now, Vic asked me if there's any endangered species in the area. Vicky bush, and I'm trying not to get myself eaten by anything. Now, Vic asked me if there's any endangered species in the area. Vicky you a live TV show all the way from the southern tip of Africa in a massive wilderness area, and from time to time the signal gets stuck on its way to you. But now I can answer that question that you asked about the endangered species. We do have endangered species over here. We have wild dogs, we have cheetah, and we've got a bunch of smaller things, but I'm going to let James answer that question for you. He's just found some hippo.
We're looking at a patch of water, everybody, where you might just be able to spot, within the next minute, one of Africa's most iconic animals. And this one is a very shy version of that iconic animal, and you can maybe see the wind sweeping across the surface of the water. But in here, eventually it'll stick. There it comes, is a hippo. And he's a bit nervous when we're not really sure why, because often they will just sit exactly like he's sitting, with their heads above the water like that. But this chap is a little bit nervous, and every time I sort of move the vehicle, he quickly puts his head under the water. And that's how they stay safe. Now, you were asking about danger, a few of you, wondering if the leopards would attack us and why they don't attack us. And interestingly, one of the most dangerous animals, if you like, in Africa is the hippo. And they actually kill more people in Africa than any other animal. Now, I believe Steph was answering a question for you when he lost a bit of picture. I'm going to ask for that question again, and I'll see if I can't help answer what he was answering. Are there any endangered animals in the area? Yes, there are, absolutely. And more so, sadly. They're not endangered here specifically. For example, those leopards are not endangered in this area. There's a very healthy population, but they are becoming increasingly endangered the world over. The most obvious or iconic endangered animal that we have here is the African wild dog. And the African wild dog also has a relatively healthy population here, but throughout the world, very endangered indeed. Probably about 3,500 of them left, maybe up to 4,000 or so. So very few wild dogs left in the world, and most of them up in Tanzania, in the Selous. But you know, all throughout the world, animals are becoming more and more threatened by human activities. A little while back, there were well over 100,000 lions on the African continent. In fact, probably as little as 30 years ago. Now there are fewer than 20,000 of them. That's not a lot. If you think of the number of people there are in Hong Kong alone, and you think how small Hong Kong is in comparison with some of the wilderness areas here, you can see that, well, 20,000 is just a minute amount. It's probably the size of maybe 2 city blocks in a place like Hong Kong. Even elephants are having a rough time. And then, of course, rhino. There are rhino here, black rhino, highly endangered, white rhino, likewise, becoming more and more endangered as human beings kill them. Ray, you're wondering about how long a hippopotamus can stay under the water. I'm told about 8 minutes. But I've never seen a hippo stay underwater for anything like that long. Normally, it's actually only about 20 seconds or so, and then they come up and breathe and go back down again. I've definitely seen a hippo stay under for as long as a minute, but it's very seldom that they will do that. And they don't, you know, that hippopotamus is not treading water. He's standing on the bottom. And so they're not actually swimmers. People will say hippo can't swim. That makes it sound like they're drowned, but they don't float, you see. So they walk along the bottom of the water, and then they sort of push up and then breathe. And James, you were wondering about whether or not hippos can swim. No, they do struggle to swim because they're just a bit heavy. They're a bit dense. Well, that doesn't mean that they can't move in deep water. They just jump up and push up to the surface of the water when they want to breathe. Okay, let's move on from this hippo. I think we've had enough of him. The leopards have gone south, so let's see what else we can find around here. Ray, you're wondering what an impala is. Well, that's a very good question, of course. I was talking about them in the context of what leopards eat. An impala is the most common antelope that we get out here. We get 9 different species of antelope, and an impala is the most common one of those. And one hates to guarantee that we'll see one, because so often when you make those sorts of guarantees, it doesn't happen. But there's a very, very good chance that we will see an impala fairly soon. I wonder where we should go. Let's go this way. We'll see if we can find you some impalas. And I'd also quite like to show you an elephant, because the elephants have been around a lot lately, and they really are quite fun to see. So let's move along. We're going to move along relatively quickly on our little morning safari here. I guess it must be afternoon in Hong Kong. Can somebody tell me what the time is there? And who knows what we're going to see around the next corner, obviously. And it's 1:15 in the afternoon, so you've probably either just had or are going to have your lunch after this. That'll be quite nice. And I mean, I cannot imagine a more different environment from the one that I live in. An enormous city, of course, and for me, most famous for the Hong Kong Rugby Sevens. But obviously, that's not what it's the most famous for. It's a huge site of commerce, lots and lots of people and buildings and technology, some of the world's most sophisticated technology, and yet you've now been transformed to where I live, which is a complete wilderness area. Very little in the way of infrastructure and buildings and that sort of thing. Let's go up this way, because I did see some impala around here a little bit earlier. And all the time we're looking around, perhaps we might see an interesting bird, an interesting tree, an interesting flower, an interesting insect. And I think Steph is having a little bit of trouble with his pack at the moment, so we're going to be on our own. Bryson, you want to know what the smartest animal in the world is? Well, while we look at a gorgeous flower there, I will tell you. Bryson, the smartest animal in the world, you might be surprised to know, is probably the human being. And while, yes, well, we all know some human beings who are not very smart at all, some human beings are distinctly unsmart. We are probably the smartest creatures in the world, and that's obviously because we have enormous brains in comparison with most creatures out here. Here's a beautiful hibiscus flower. Can you see this, Craig? I'll get onto that a little bit more for you, Brighton. And so we tend to think, I'm not going to pick it because it is a wild flower and it has, well, a right to be there, I suppose. We tend to think of ourselves as the brightest because we've developed wheels, obviously, and we've developed advanced technologies and various other things. And so that's the standard against which we judge other animals' intelligence. And I'm sure you didn't mean, you obviously know that human beings are supposedly the smartest in the world. You probably meant what's the smartest animal out here, other than a human being. And that's difficult to say, because all of the animals out here, of course, are as smart as they need to be to survive out here. So a leopard is very smart at catching prey, it's very smart at staying hidden, very smart at being territorial and marking its territory and being able to tell where all the other leopards in the area are. But if you give it a maths paper, it's going to fail, obviously. It can't speak. But it doesn't need to speak, and it doesn't need to be able to do maths to survive. We do these days. We have to have sophisticated language. We are physically very poor in comparison with all the other animals out here, which means we have to have this huge brain in order to be able to survive. Something like a baboon or a chimpanzee Well, they're a little bit closer to us in the way that their minds work and the way that their social structures work, which means that we tend to think of them as being smarter or cleverer, there's an impala up ahead, than something like a leopard or perhaps something like that impala. But in actual fact, all we're saying there is that the way it thinks, the way its brain works, is closer to the way our own brains work, and therefore we think of them as being smarter. This impala is hopeless at language. It definitely cannot add 1 and 1. Well, I don't think it can add 1 and 1, and if it could, it wouldn't be able to tell me about it, but it's perfectly intelligent for the job that it has to do to survive, and its job is to find grass to eat and to stay warm and then to mate. And Ollie, you're saying, how do different animals adapt in the safari? Well, that's a difficult question to answer. I'm just going to quickly correct an impression, perhaps. This area is not called a safari. A safari is an East African term or Swahili word that means journey. And it's come to mean basically a game drive. So it's come to mean an exploration of a wilderness area. That's what a safari is now sort of used. When we use the term safari, that's what we mean. The area here would just be called the bush or the wilderness. So how do the different animals adapt out here in the wilderness? Well, they've all adapted over many millions of years. And that animal that you're looking at now, the impala, is one of the animals that has adapted the longest time ago. And some of their most important adaptations include the ability to eat leaves from trees and grass off the ground. Very few herbivores are able to do that. But Ollie, I mean, it's, you know, that's a kind of question that we could spend years discussing. And it's important to understand that every creature out here that survives out here has, over the course of evolutionary time, so over millions of years, they have adapted to a certain way of life that is possible within the constraints of the area that they live. I hope that sort of kind of explains your question. If you want me to clarify that, just let me know. Well, Ian, yes, it is. You say, is an impala like a deer? It is to a certain extent. It isn't a deer, but it is like a deer, yes. They fill the same ecological function out here. So they are herbivores, and they provide food for some of the predators. And, well, what else do? They provide fertilizer for the bush. But in many ways, they are very like deer. They are ruminants, which means they're like cows. They rechew their food. They eat grass, and they perform that same function. Their differences, though, are that we don't actually get deer in Africa at all. We get antelope, and the antelope are slightly different, and the most obvious difference is that they don't lose their horns. So those horns are permanent, whereas a deer gets antlers, and they fall off every year. Ray, you say, how do you tell the difference between an impala and an antelope? Well, an impala is an antelope. An antelope is a family of different animals, and in this case it includes the impala, the wildebeest, the waterbuck, the steenbok, the duiker, the nyala, and the kudu, and the sable, and the bushbuck. Those are all the antelope that we get here. Those are the 9 species. And so you've got, I mean, yeah, an impala is an antelope in the same way that you might describe there being cats out here, right? So we know that there are cats out here. So you wouldn't say what's the difference between a leopard and a cat, because of course a leopard is a cat, and it's only one of a number of different cats that we get out here. Does that make sense? In the same way as you get, if I said that we got deer out here, we would know, or we wouldn't, if I said we got deer out here, you'd say, well, what kind of deer do you get? Do you get white-tailed deer, or fallow deer, or reindeer, or you know, any of the other kinds of deer that knock about the world? Caribou, for example. Now, normally this time of year, it's pretty hot, and the sun would have probably raised the temperature to around about 26 or 27 degrees Celsius so far, just before 7:30 in the morning, or just after 7:30 in the morning. But there's a big front, a cold front moving through at the moment, and so we don't have a huge amount of heat coming our way during the course of today. And you can see the grass is very long, and that's because we're in the summer and we've had a lot of rain, which is always a blessing out here. We never complain about rain in Africa. Well, that's not true, but we shouldn't complain about rain in Africa. Let's keep going. We're going to go past these impala. We don't have too long left on our little sort of morning safari, if you like, or for you afternoon safari. And we'll just see if we can't quickly find you an elephant. You'd think an elephant would be easy to find, given how big they are, but they're not always. Let's just have one last look at these impala, because they're standing very close to us and they're being very, what we call, confiding. In other words, they're not worrying too much about us being around. Now, they are much more nervous of people than the cats are, but they're much less nervous of us in the car than when we are on foot. Ollie, you're wondering about the scientific name of the species of antelope and deer. Ollie, we don't get deer here. Okay, there are no deer in Africa at all. It is only antelope that we get in Africa. There are a couple of deer that have been imported, but we don't get any naturally occurring deer. The Latin name of this particular antelope, the impala, is Apseros melampus. Apseros melampus. I'm not going to give you all the other 9 Latin names, probably because I can't remember them all, but also because I don't think you'll remember them. Because I can't remember them. Adam, you've asked a very good question, actually. You say, why, as the sun comes out, why is it that the impala wag their tails like a helicopter? Well, they don't really. They're just wagging them from side to side. And the point of that is that we think to remove ticks. Now, ticks, I don't know if you know what ticks are, but they're arachnids. In other words, they're related to spiders. And they are bloodsuckers. And we think that those black stripes that you can see there on the impala are a little bit warmer than the rest of the body, so they radiate a bit more heat. And we think that ticks might be attracted to that area, and then the impala will wag its tail and the ticks will be thrown down to the ground. Because ticks, of course, apart from being bloodsuckers, also transfer disease. So they transfer various parasites to the animals out here. Right, we have something else out here that is very desperate to get rid of ticks, and I'll let him tell you about that.
Definitely one of my least favorite things, along with flies, are ticks. But it's the price you pay for being in a wilderness like we are at the moment, and a little bit of blood donated to Africa's soil. There's always a guarantee that you're going to see something spectacular. And that is exactly what we do out here, is look at things that are spectacular. Now, today seems to be a bit of a dung day. This is an old pile of elephant dung, and in it you'll notice a bunch of these seeds. Now, most of these seeds, in actual fact, have been emptied out. These are the seeds of a marula, and most of them have been emptied out by squirrels. So this is how the squirrels have been opening up the seeds to eat the contents thereof. Now, these seeds are delicious, and it's considered amongst a lot of the local tribe around here, the Shangaan people, or the local tribe of people that live in this particular area, that to receive a packet full of marula seeds is a sign of friendship. And so what happens is you have these tokens of friendship given over to people throughout the summertime. And I'm going to see if I can open up one of these seeds and share it with Rowan. These seeds, of course, come out of the bottom of an elephant. This is the elephant dung. The elephants ate the marulas and then left. Now, Koleka, you've asked me, won't I get sick from eating elephant dung? Now, I'm going to tell you that it's probably a bad idea. It is a bad idea to put any type of dung in your mouth. So please don't do that. Let's just start there. Could I get sick from eating elephant dung? Yes, I suppose I could. I've been doing it for so many years though, Kaleka. I think by now, if I was going to get sick from eating elephant dung, I would have already been sick. So see what I've done? I've taken my knife and I've put it into the cap. And now I'm lifting up the cap to expose the seed. There's the seed on the inside there. And we're going to dig it out now. So now I look for a stick. Grind the stick down in your teeth. Scrape off the covering, because that is a bit hard and woody. It's not too nice. There you can see that beautiful white seed that's on the inside there. And then what you do is you take your stick and you stick it into the side. And oh no, I broke my stick off. Oh, tragedy. Now I'm going to have to do it again. Alright, so hang on, wait, maybe I've got a multi-tool here, you know. Being an ex-Boy Scout, I have a few of these things in my arsenal here. And there we go. Let's use one of them right now. Flies today are insane. Alright, so let's dig it out. The seed, there you go. So that's the seed on the inside, and then you can take it and pop it into your mouth. So I'm going to have one, and I'm going to save my friend Rowan some. He's on camera today, so I'll save him some. That's quite good. Tastes very almondy, so it has an almondy flavor, but an oily almond flavor. Now, the oil from the marula nuts has been turned into an essential oil that you can wipe onto your skin to give it some good moisturizing things. And obviously, it's good for your skin because of that. So lots of vitamin E is good for the skin. Now, Ollie, you've asked me what are the most common trees in this area of the Kruger National Park. Ollie, it's nice that where we're sitting at the moment, we can actually see some of them right now. So this marula fruit, or the nut, the fruit is about this big that comes around it. That came from the marula tree. That big tree that's sitting there in the background, that's a marula tree. That is one of the most common trees in the Kruger National Park. And a tree like that will produce upwards of 500 kilograms of fruit per year. Now, it's just finished the fruiting season. Unfortunately, we always are quite sad when the marula fruiting season is finished, because we spend about a month over here just eating marulas like crazy. But at least for the next couple of months, we'll be able to root through elephant dung like this and pick out the nuts and the seeds as well. Now, another quite interesting tree, or common tree that we found out here, is this tree. This is a beautiful example of a silver cluster leaf tree. That is another very common tree that we find around here. Very hard wood, used in making of implement handles, things like axe handles, and lots of farming equipment is made from the wood of this tree, including the support structures for homes that are built with wood. So they make a very good wood for homes. Let's see if we can see another very common tree. This low down bush that you see right here, that is a jackalberry tree. That is the largest tree that we find in the Kruger Park, and not the largest, it's one of the largest, in the top 5 of the biggest trees in the Kruger Park. That's obviously a baby one, but they grow to easily double the height of the marula tree that is next to it on the right. Now, another common tree that we find over here is that peltiforum tree over there. That is the African weeping wattle. We find that tree out here. That tree, you can use it to treat coughs and colds. The root, you can also make nice bedding. So if you were to sleep out here in the bush for a night, you need to insulate yourself from the cold ground. It's that tree that you pick the leaves from, and basically you can use that to keep yourself nice and warm. All right, we're going to carry on and find something else interesting to show you over the next couple of minutes. And in the meantime, we're going to send you over to James, who's found another type of antelope.
We've got a very special treat for you, everybody. We've got a hyena mother and her 2 tiny little cubs. They're only about 8 weeks old, we think. And there they are, suckling from their mum just as the sun comes out. Isn't that special? Look at them, they're tiny little beautiful things. Isn't that gorgeous? Now, hyenas, I think, are one of the most special animals in the world. People will tell you that they are dastardly scavengers and that they sort of don't deserve to live because they steal food from others. It's just not true. They do a lot of hunting on their own. And if you were to see how, well, they're very cute, of course, but they also spend a lot of time looking after each other. They have a very sophisticated social structure where it's actually a female-dominated social structure, which is quite unusual for the animal kingdom. And that's a female there, and her 2 little babies. Isn't that nice? And they're just suckling on the milk there. And all around the wind is blowing still, beautiful summer sunshine. And so that's going to be it, of course, from us for this little safari that we've been on. So thank you very much for joining us. I hope that you had a good time there at school, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your school day. Until next time, bye-bye.
Well, we're back with you. We've said goodbye to our schools as you saw there with James, and for the next couple of minutes of the show, you're going to be with us, well, next couple of minutes, the next 45 minutes of the show. We've got quite a lot of it left. Now, we are ambling around on top of quarantine, myself and Rowan, mainly because we were picking up a bit of a freeze frame thing with the backpack, which seems to have sorted itself out. But for safety's sake, we're going to be just rolling around or roaming around on top of quarantine clearings, just in case we need to get our tech geniuses out here to come and figure out what's going on. But for now, you're with us, and we are going to be making circuits of the open area, and I am on my way to my favorite termite mound on Djuma. And it's my favorite because it's so active, and I'm going to go and see what's happened to it. I haven't visited this particular termite mound for the last 3 or 4 weeks, I think, probably close on a month and a half now. And I'm looking forward to seeing how big it's gotten now that it's summertime and the termites are going to be all active. I want to see how big the chimney is, and we're going to go through there now. That's what we're going to be doing, and showing you basically what it is. Then I'm going to be looking for as far as I know, the most toxic plant that we have over here, the Abris precatoriae, and that I'm hoping to find you before you are finished with the safari with me today. In the meantime, why don't we send you back over to James and those hyena cubs.
Okay, let me move forward. The hyenas have just moved off, everyone, and please remember now, of course, this is back to being a non-school drive, so hashtag safariLIVE is how you get hold of us. I thought maybe the mum was moving off and the cubs would go back inside, but they haven't. They've just moved around here, so I'm going to move very slowly. I can still hear the little ones making a big noise. And Wild Bill, what a wonderful name you have. You say, are there any scavengers that are, or any animals that are scavengers only? They're in here. Yes, certainly birds, definitely. There we are. Vultures are scavengers almost entirely, exclusively. That is very irritating. So vultures, what I would describe as being completely scavengers, well, bar the lappet-faced, which has been recorded killing every so often. Mammals, I don't know. No, I don't think that there are any that would scavenge almost exclusively, but certainly, I mean, a brown hyena and a striped hyena would probably do less hunting than a spotted hyena. But it's a continuum, you know, it's not a sort of one or the other situation. And that's not great, is it? Let's go around the other side there. What else would there be? I mean, there are obviously plenty of insects that are scavengers only. Dung beetles come to mind. And of course, when we ask about animals, we often mean mammals, without realizing that we're referring to an entire kingdom of creatures. We're just going to move very slowly around here and try not to make too much noise. I'm not sure how much of a view we're going to have from the side of the mound. We may have to go all the way round. Yeah, I think we're going to have to go all the way around. There's a big stick in front here which we could push over, but I think that would disturb the hyenas and I think they'll disappear inside if we do that. So I'm afraid we're just going to be patient. I'm going to reverse slowly round the whole mound. So much fun to reverse. Now Stefan, of course, he's a very clever man, and I say that because he sets himself the objective to find something that he knows is already there, and that is the cleverest kind of guide. Let's go and find out what it is that he knew was there.
I don't quite know whether to swear at James or to say thank you, but since he's my friend, I'm going to say thank you and forget about that comment. I have found the termite mound, the object of my objective, and yes, it is static because it's a termite mound. It was never going to go anywhere to start with. But it's been fully open now. So now, have a look at the inside of this chimney. Many of you would be familiar with this termite mound. I did visit it in winter. And this winter, they covered this entire piece and left, well, literally, for most of winter, they covered the entire chimney. But last year, to avoid escaping moisture, only a little portion, about as big as my fist, of this chimney was open. But come and have a look this year at the size of this chimney now. That's the widest I've ever seen this particular chimney on this termite mound. And the heat coming out of this is just unbelievable. This, if you've baked cookies and open the oven and let the oven cool down for a bit, when you can stick your hand into the oven, that's what it feels like. It really is warm. Now, of course, the temperature in here is 31 degrees. It's between 30 and 31 degrees, the temperature of this termite mound. What is that in Fahrenheit? Probably about 80 degrees Fahrenheit is 30 degrees centigrade, although I would like some help on that, of course, so feel free to use the hashtag safariLIVE and just let me know what 31 degrees centigrade is in Fahrenheit, because that is exactly what I'm feeling here now. And on a day that's windy and blustery like it is now, where the temperature is probably in the low 70s, when you've got something in the mid or low 80s, it's significant. Now, what does it smell like? And that's another one of my favorites. Without getting bitten in the face by a black mamba, to cup my hand over this, just smell it. It's the most unbelievable smell. Termite mound is just a big air conditioner for a farm. They are fungus farms. The termites themselves collect grass and plant material and farm fungus, which they then eat. So the termites eat the fungus, and they are very good at farming fungus, particular type of fungus that lives inside these termite mounds. And when you smell the top of a termite mound like this, it smells like wet clay, rain, fungus, a little bit of rotting wood and grass and vegetation. It's just such a fantastic smell. One of my most favorite smells. Now, because this termite mound is open like this, of course, the opportunity for feeding on termites exists, and there are signs everywhere that birds have been waiting. So have a look at this. Here we have the droppings of a bird that is sitting here and basically waiting for the termites to come out and then collecting the termites. Now, Justin S., you've asked me an interesting question. Can you bake bread in the inside of a termite mound? Yes, you can. I'm going to tell you how now. It wouldn't work if you just put the bread over this. It's too cold. So this is only 30 degrees centigrade, and even if you opened it a little bit and covered it again, you won't get much hotter than 30 degrees centigrade. But termite mounds make for fantastic ovens. And all over Africa, you see evidence of people mining termite mounds. They mine them for the clay, but they make bricks out of the clay, and then they use the oven, the hole, the cavity where they mine the clay, as the oven, the kiln, to fire the bricks. And there's the answer to the question there, in that if you were to excavate this termite mound and you were to build a kiln, you absolutely would be able to build a fire in there, bank up the coals, put your bread in, and probably make quite a nice bread.
Well, today everybody, we're going to be burning the bushwalk backpack as sort of an objection to how utterly pathetically it's performed this morning. Luckily these hyenas are performing in a far better fashion, and we're enjoying them thoroughly. And if you listen carefully, you can hear them calling there. It's a little bit like listening to a child with an unbroken voice, because eventually that voice that they've got now, which is a kind of, well, rasping squeak, if you like, is going to be a very powerful voice that sends whooping, echoing whoops into the night, and those sort of scary cackling laughs that have given hyenas their fearsome reputation. Now, one of the reasons that she's come off to live here, as I've said before, is that she's low ranking, we think. But it's interesting that often lower ranking cubs get less milk than higher ranking ones, and you think, but why is that the case? They don't cross suckle their youngsters, so it's not like a higher ranking female's cubs would try and suckle from her. It's because she will eat less and therefore will produce less milk. And so it really is to her advantage to get away from the main den during the course of this process, or this period, that initial sort of, what do they call it, early development or so that the cubs can get as much to eat as possible, and she can have the space to move around and catch as much as she can on her own without the competition of the rest of the clan, while still sort of taking advantage of the protection, of course, being offered by the clan or being in their territory. Now, Aaron, you're wondering at what age they're going to leave the den. Well, they're going to leave the den probably, I wouldn't be surprised if they left fairly soon to go and try and find the main den, wherever that may be. Nobody knows where that is at the moment. It's normally 6 weeks at a time at a den. I think these chaps are about 8 weeks old. I think they were born in the den not far from here, on elephant carcass that Herbert found that one morning when we were on foot. We saw a lot of activity going in and out of there. Pretty sure it must have been this female, and I think she then moved these cubs over here. Let's just try and look behind their tails there and see if they in fact look exactly the same, or if they're obviously different at all. So I don't think it's too long from now that they will move away from this den. Well, you see, Naturable, yes indeed, they are starting to get spots. You say, are they getting spots? Yes, they are. Now, it was my understanding that that process began at roughly 6 weeks, but because I've got my very fancy new mammal application, which includes accounts of such oddities as the golden mole, let's just have a look-see here. I'm just going to quickly read to check whether or not I'm right. It actually doesn't say the age here. It says juveniles uniformly black to dark brown at birth, but soon develop pale fur with clear dark spotting, which is progressively lost with age. Yeah, and I think it's about 6 weeks or so. And so I would put these guys at 7 to 8 weeks. And they grow relatively slowly to start with, and eventually that sort of growth will speed up. But they suckle for a huge amount of time in comparison with most. Almost a year. It's turning into a beautiful morning. Nice breeze blowing, sun's out. And, you know, there's an aeroplane in the background, and so often, I don't know, the sound of a sort of propeller aeroplane in the distance is reminiscent of sort of warm, still childhood afternoons, so I always like it. And when I move to the bush, of course, it means that there are guests coming in or guests going out. And I often think to myself how utterly magnificent it must be to land on an aeroplane in an area like this for the first time. How romantic it must be to fly in to enjoy this quite astounding environment. Yes, I'm afraid the best I can do for you is about 6 weeks. Oh, look at that. That is very sweet. Well, we're not going to go anywhere from here. I'm going to do a little bit more research on the spotting. And while I do that, Stefan van der Boer would like to do some geometry with you.
This is an interesting piece of geometry, this that I'm going to show you. Here's an elephant track. It is the front foot of an elephant, a fairly large elephant.
I think Steph should just go and have breakfast. Now, while I was doing my little bit of reading here, the last time I was here we had a long discussion about the existence, well, we were talking about the pseudopenis, of course, which is the enlarged clitoris that a female hyena has, and then somebody asked the question about whether a pseudo-vagina exists in nature, which I said no, I didn't think it did. And I've just seen here, we then went on to discuss, you know, what other animals have got this sort of enlarged, or that sort of situation. What's interesting, though, is that they aren't the only ones. And I've just read that now. Squirrel monkeys, female spider monkeys, also have enlarged clitoris, but they don't have the same situation where they give birth through and urinate through the clitoris like this in spotted hyenas. So they are the only species that have that. It's quite astounding. Right, let me just keep scrolling through this. And if you are wondering, I'm going to tell you what the app is. It's called the Smithers Mammals of the Southern African Subregion, and it is a comprehensively magnificent tome. And I know I'm not supposed to do any advertising, but these are starving academics who've written this book, and it really is the quintessential Southern African mammal text. If you ever want to know about animals from here, this is the good one. Because it was written by starving academics, I don't mind giving them a bit of a sort of a punt, if you like. No, it doesn't say anything about when they start losing their spots. We've definitely seen it, though, over the years, or certainly over the months that we've been around these hyenas. I mean, we've watched little hyenas being born, and 6 weeks or so they start losing it on the head. I also, of course, have lost everything on my head too, and they don't lose their hair, they just use the darkness and they go spotter. Let's just have one last look there. Cody, I missed your question, I'm afraid. Can I have it again, please, Rebecca? Oh, Cody, you say are females bigger than males? Yes, absolutely. They're probably about 10% larger. In fact, I'll give you the exact sort of weight range. Big female about 70 kilograms or so. So you can multiply that by 2.2 if you want to find out the imperial form. And I will tell you that, you see, it's interesting that what was so great about this app that I'm using. Yes, females roughly 70 kilograms. Males, yeah, about 10% smaller. They're about 63 kilograms or so. I'm glad I got that right. You know, it's a long time since I've actually read these figures. But what's interesting here is you'll read that in a number of texts, but they won't tell you how many animals they've measured to get those measurements. And obviously, because they're wild animals, it can't be a lot of them. So, for example, that mass that I gave you, which is from the Kruger National Park, that's only from 11 individuals. So it's the average of 11 individuals. And with the females, the range is from 55 to 81. So, I mean, some of the females can get up to 81 kilos. And because it's only a sample of, in fact, 9 individuals, oh, look, this is wonderful. It gives you the impression, of course, that, I mean, that's a minute proportion of the population. So, yeah, let's say 70 odd kilos, but it could easily be 75 as the average. It could easily be 65 as the average. Oh, this is just fantastic. Look at this. Going on a little exploratory mission. Are you enjoying the exploratory mission, Craig? It's pretty cool. Now for Craig, I mean, that basically, when Craig says something is pretty cool, he basically means that he's never been more excited in all his days. I think that's wonderful. They're so cute. And you can easily see why Jamie, for example, finds these her very favorite animals. Right, I'm very excited to say that we're going to go over to Steph now for his geometry lesson, which will hopefully last longer than 3 nanoseconds this time.
Let's hold thumbs, it lasts longer than 3 seconds at least anyway. So the idea here is that there's a theory in being able to extrapolate the height of an elephant's shoulder from using their front foot track. So here we have the track of an elephant, the front foot of an elephant, a big elephant, and I've circled the circumference of the elephant track, and I've gone to go get myself some bark rope, and I'm going to put the rope in the track. Now I didn't get enough rope. So there is a patch about a handspan, just bigger than a handspan, bigger than this piece of rope. So let's see if we can get the height of this elephant. So from its foot to there, plus a handspan, plus a handspan, and it's 3.5 times the circumference of an elephant's foot. So there we go. So here we have the projected height of that elephant is from here at his shoulder. I'll take roughly about a meter step. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Can it be? Did I do enough? 1, to 3.5. Yeah, it is. Gee whiz. I don't think it works that. 1, 2, 3, almost 4 meters at the shoulder. I don't think that that's true, to be honest with you. So I'm going to discount this theory that the height of an elephant's shoulder is 3.5 times the circumference of its front foot, based on this elephant's track and my very sophisticated measuring device, and my finger, of course. So I don't think that it's that. I think it's probably a little bit less than that. Although this is a big elephant, elephants do get to around about 3.5 meters at the shoulder. This particular elephant was probably close to that, but not 4 meters. I doubt that very much, unless it was an incredibly rangy giraffe with elephant with very, very big feet. So I don't think that that's the case at all. All right, so we'll discount that little theory. I'm glad we tried it with you, and I'm glad that it lasted, the segment lasted. We seem to have a bit of a gremlin that has crept into this backpack, but we'll sort it out. We've got Anwar and Alex, the tech geniuses, the genii that we have at camp at the moment. I'm sure they'll sort it out, no problem. So now on to the second half of my quest on top of quarantine. I'm going to be looking for the Abrus precatoriae, the lucky bean creeper. And there's nothing lucky about this particular creeper. It packs probably the biggest poison per volume of any of the plants that I know of in this particular portion of the Kruger National Park, and I want to see if I can show you some, at least anyway. Now, Amber, you wanted to know if invasive plant species are a big problem in Africa. Amber, they are. I was lucky enough to be able to sit in a talk about alien invasive species, in particular alien invasive plants in South Africa and Southern Africa in general. And I never really realized, we don't see them here in the Kruger National Park. So there are a few. Lantana would be one, Mexican poppy would be another. But you don't see them, they're not that common. You'll find them, but they're not that common here. But there are places in South Africa and Southern Africa where invasive species of plants have taken over. And in some cases, these plants are actually poisonous to humans. They cause inflammation of the skin, they can cause eye irritations, and I never realized just the extent of some of these plants, how invasive they can be and how impactful they can be on communities. They can have a really, really detrimental effect on poor communities. And that's not even counting the cost of trying to eradicate these plants. So literally, just because of a slip-up or a herbicide that wasn't applied correctly, a plant species can be introduced into an area that has no natural control mechanisms. There's no insect that eats that plant. There's no, the environment is conducive to it growing, and it'll spread like wildfire. And yes, so, you know, to answer your question shortly, yes, there's a problem with alien invasive plant species in Africa. I suppose the same as many continents, but there is very little alien invasive species actually inside the Kruger National Park, although you will find them if you look for them. Alrighty, why don't we send you back over to James and those hyena who are apparently having a bath.
I'm not sure you'd describe that as a bath, but yes, they're certainly having a bit of a wash, thankfully. Hyenas can tend to smelliness, and so it's always a good idea to have a little bit of a wash. And I must tell you that hyenas are, well, a hyena den site is often quite smelly, and it's very unlike the scentless kind of existence that lion cubs live. Remember, lion cubs don't have the safety of a den like this, which means that their mothers have to keep them fastidiously clean so that they don't start smelling like rotting meat or fetid, rancid milk. But if you stick your nose into that hyena den now, there's a very distinctive hyena-ish smell that I'm pretty sure other animals can pick up on. I mean, we're so lucky that we've spent this kind of time with him, I must say. I'm very glad Steph managed to give you his geography or his geometry lesson. And I must confess that theory that he was talking about I have often considered myself to be, I've often thought to myself, I'm sure that can't be right. Isn't this amazing? Skip, aged just 11 from Texas. I know you've asked about our hyenas before, so it's great to have you asking questions. You say, what happens to the cubs when they meet the rest of the clan? Skip, life for them will probably not be as easy as it is now. Because their mother is not high-ranking, that means that she's not a sort of leader in the clan. It means that the cubs will fall into the hierarchy. Do you know what hierarchy means, Skip? I'm sure you do. It means kind of the order that they live in. A bit like, you know, when you're at school, you get guys who are older and sort of more higher up, if you like. The same happens here with the hyenas, and that means that when these cubs eventually go back to the dens with them, or meet the rest of the clan, they will fall into that hierarchy, which means they won't be very high ranking, and it means that they will not be, they might be bullied a bit by older cubs, and they'll certainly be bullied by cubs that are higher ranking. They'll be okay, but life will be a bit harder for them. Now, if you're a high-ranking female and you give birth to high-ranking cubs, well, then your cubs are going to eat a lot more, and they're also not going to be bullied nearly as much. So Skip, yeah, look, they'll get used to it. It won't be, you know, they're not going to go through life thinking, oh, how we've had such a tough time, but it will be difficult for them. Let's try and see if we can get one last look, and then we'll carry on. But I think they might come straight back here. I'm just watching the mum now. She might want to go off hunting, you know, and therefore, or not hunting, foraging maybe, and therefore the cubs will go back into the hole. We'll try for one last look around the corner. Gosh, we've had a really nice morning, haven't we, with all of these predators. My luck has been tremendously poor over the last few days, and so to have had the leopards and the hyenas, great stuff. Tracks of lions around here as well, but where they've gone I don't know. And I'm going to move very carefully here. Oh, look. Oh, the little ones have now run back, straight back into the den site. I think that's probably because we came along here and Mum is just a little bit far away for them to be comfortable. I'm not going to move again because she's looking back towards them, almost indicating, sorry, that she might think about calling them out. But she might also go all foraging or go for a drink or something like that. She's young, you know. That's not a big hyena. Oh, they're calling her. They're not putting their heads out. Let's see if she calls them back. Isn't it interesting? She's had the same kind of reaction as a human mother would on hearing her own child call or cry. And she's just stopped there in the shade and she's looking back towards them. But instinctually, I think that they think she's too far away from the hole. They don't feel safe even with her there. I'm going to let this play out for another 2 minutes and then we're going to move away in case she does want to actually bring them out. But she's totally relaxed around us. What's so fascinating to me though is when you try and follow a hyena at night, when it is on the forage, like you might with a leopard or a lion, they are totally intolerant of vehicles. They run away. And yet around the den site like this, they are the most confiding of all the animals. Thank you very much, Craig, for that. Your click maybe needs to be a bit louder in the wind. Otherwise the viewers are going to just get the back of my head. Okay, let's carry on from here. She's laying down in the shade there. I think we'll leave her there. And unsurprisingly, the bushwalk seems to be not functioning at the moment. Fascinating. Brian, the termite mound, as Steph I'm sure was sort of alluding to before his bushwalk backpack gave up, is used by almost countless numbers of animals. You say, what animals will use a termite mound for a den? Well, the most obvious ones, of course, the hyenas, and then wild dogs also use holes in termite mounds for dens. And then we go to aardvark. They're the ones that open up the termite mounds for everybody to start with. Then warthogs will use them. Mongoose will use them. I've seen pygmy kingfishers nesting inside them. Countless numbers of insects. Many different snakes will use termite mounds for estivating and hibernating in. So there really are a great number. Now, Stefan has managed to find something that is quite dangerous, and hopefully he won't eat, although with him you just never know.
I definitely won't be eating this, that's for sure. But we found our lucky bean creeper. This is it here. This is the Abris precatoriae plant, and we've even found a flower on it, which is unusual because I've never seen the flower of an Abris precatoriae, the lucky bean creeper. So for those of you who keep some records of truly interesting plants, this is it with the leaf structure. As you can see, it is a climbing species of plant. It grows out of a multi-stemmed base, basically, underneath the ground, and will crawl up these grass stalks, and will, in the beginning of summer, produce a seed pod with a red and black seed in it that's probably about as big as a peppercorn. And just one of those seeds, if you had to put it in your mouth and chew it, you need to break through the outer casing of the shell. Just one of those seeds is enough to kill a full-grown man. Isn't that impressive? So this, as far as I know, is the most dangerous plant that we have out here at Djuma Private Game Reserve. This is more dangerous than a lion in terms of, I suppose dead is dead, so how do you say is more dangerous than a lion? But yeah. Now, Hal, you've asked me how often has albinism in plants been observed. Hal, you can't, as far as I know, get albinism in plants. Albinism is when you have a lack of melanin in your cells. As far as I know, melanin is an animal-produced compound, and so only animals that produce melanin, or at least are able to produce melanin but don't produce melanin, can become albinos or show albinism. You can probably get plants with a lack of pigment. I don't know if it's melanin specific though. So albinism is restricted to the lack of melanin, not the lack of pigment in an animal, as far as I know. But I mean, please feel free, Hal, to educate me. I'm quite often astounded by how often you all out there teach us about our environment. The last was, and I have to say thank you to everybody that contributed to my knowledge increase here, was about the hum that giraffe make at nighttime. I never knew that giraffe made sounds at night, but it documented proof that giraffe make a low humming noise and have been. This has been recorded for many decades, of course, and I didn't know anything about it, so I just have to say thank you, back up the tube, so to say. Right back at you. So Hal, please inform me on albinism in plants if you can, using that hashtag safariLIVE. Now, one thing that was surprisingly found at the base of this particular marula was the pupa of a lunar moth. You can see that this silvery, very finely woven, pock-marked cocoon is from an insect. This would have been spun by a caterpillar, and then out of it would have come the most beautiful moth. So the lunar moth, finding one in its natural environment has been one of the things that I haven't been able to do in my career to date. So next summer we are going to carry on the search for one of these, not only the caterpillar but also the pupa with a lunar moth in it and a lunar moth in its natural environment. Now Nikki, you wanted to know from me what compounds are inside or what toxins are inside this lucky bean creeper. To be honest with you, Nikki, I can't really remember the answer to that question as I'm sitting here right now. I did read it literally a couple of weeks ago, and I don't know. I don't want to take a guess and just, fabricate a story for you. But definitely, if you'd like to do some research there, it's the Abris precatoriae, and you spell that the same way you say it, precatoriae, or the lucky bean creeper. And you will see it'd probably have a picture of the creeper itself, the vine, this compound leaf, bipinnately compound leaf that it has, and then a picture of the seed, which is about as big as a peppercorn, smooth, with a red cap and a black body. The Abris precatoriae. As far as I'm aware, the most dangerous plant that we have at Djuma Private Game Reserve in this part of the Kruger National Park. And there's quite a big creeper here. It extends quite some distance. So from this side all the way to this side of the tree. So nice. Now, Laura Mora, you wanted to know if there's any insect repellent plants out here. There absolutely are. I quite often use a plant that I'm hoping we can find some of, just so that I can show you. No, not around here anywhere. Come, let's go and have a look for some insect repellent plants that we use out here. Yes, you can use tamboti as an insect repellent. You can use Osmum canum as an insect repellent. You can use, what else can you use out here? I've gone blank there for a moment. Anyway, there are a couple of plants that you can use absolutely as a insect repellent, and we quite often do on bushwalks, specifically for beating about our heads to get rid of flies and things like that. And it doesn't really work. I suppose just the vigorous nature of it works more so than anything else. All right, let's see what else is in this. Very interesting. Watch out, you're going to get stuck on a branch. It's just we are standing, we've got a backpack on, and it stands probably about as tall as a bull giraffe elephant. Not quite that tall, but anyway, there's an aerial on it. Sometimes we get stuck on sticks like this as we go past. All right, let's come to that time of the morning where I have to say goodbye. Unfortunately, we will be seeing you on Bushwalk again this afternoon. So from me, goodbye. Have a nice day wherever you are. You off to James to close the show.
The bushwalk backpack may be as tall as the bushwalk backpack may be as tall as a bull giraffe, but it is about as useful as an ice or as a freezer in an igloo. And we're going to have a serious word with it today. And indeed, I believe the Russian, the Indian, and Connor, well, Connor's not here, but the Russian and the Indian are both here. They're going to have serious words with it during the course of the morning, which has been a very good morning for those of us in vehicles, not so good for those of us on foot, I've lost my words. Lost my words entirely. We came up towards this area because Rexon did find the tracks of the Nkuhuma Pride around here sometime from last night, and gosh, I don't know where they've gone. It looks to me like they've headed back towards Arathusa and Simbambili, but we will follow up later this afternoon and see what's going on there and contact the guys at Arathusa and see if they didn't have some lion luck this morning. But I'm more than happy to spend my time with those two cubs. There are some lions on Buffelshoek, but I think that's the Torchwood Pride of 7 lionesses and 10 little cubs. Fantastic stuff. I hope they come around here at some stage. Oh, there's our last mammal for the day, Craig. The male impala about to come into his first rut. Unfortunately for him, he's going to have a little bit of a rough time because he's not quite yet old enough to be fighting for mating rights. You can tell that because his horn's just not wide enough. So he's just over 2 years old. He would have been born in end of November or beginning of December of 2014. So next year I think will probably be the first year that he will actually fight for mating rights. Let's just go to the corner here before I bid you all a fond farewell, so that you may go and get on with whatever it is that you're going to get on with. Probably quite a lot of sleeping. Shall stop just down here. There we go. Right, and your last sighting of the day is going to be of my favourite grass. There it is, some yellow thatching grass. Thank you very much for coming on our drive with us. It's been a good time. Beautiful leopards and hyenas, a slow start, but all of your wonderful conversation made it much easier as we began. We'll see you this afternoon at 4 o'clock. Okay? Bye-bye.